I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting February 16th, 2023, 501 Main Street, 5:30 PM. Can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Crenshaw,
Here.
Altide, Garcia,
Here.
Oltmans,
Here.
Hellenthal,
Here.
Andrews, Tillman,
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Greenwald,
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
Item number 4, Mayor's Correspondence. City Administrator Cole O'Donnell, community leaders, and I met with 3 representatives from an organization known as Insight, Dr. Jawal Shah, CSO Nina Smith, and Public Policy Rep. Dane Walling have reached out to Keokuk in order to open a hospital. They go to rural communities that have a struggling or had a hospital closing and work to open a new and better facility for the community and its surrounding area. They visited with community leaders in the school system. They went on a great tour of the powerhouse and the city. By the way, if you need a tour for any information about a tour for the city of Keokuk, you don't have to look any further than Kira Kukoski from Main Street. She took us on a tour, and she knows her stuff, and it was very impressive. So thank you, Kira. We also received a lot of information on their ideas and their process for making things happen. They will need to get their licensing under control first. This is a little harder than it is in most places they have been because Blessing closed their doors, and it's easier to get all that transferred if they would have left the building open and sold it that way. So anyway, their plan is to begin with an emergency room and to continue to grow their services to meet the needs of Keokuk. The one thing that was evident during the visit was that patient care, along with serving our community, was their top priority. Our great city council, along with City Administrator Cole O'Donnell, and I will continue to work with them to get their licensing and legislative process done as quickly as possible. They were a great bunch of people, and we will be fortunate to have them. Item number 5, citizens' request.
Somebody really tall was here first, weren't they? My name is Amanda Rogers. I live at 1307 Blondo Street here in town. Tonight I'm here just to give you an update about the Best You Coalition. I am not a public speaker, so I'm just going to talk about the things that I'm most excited about. But everything is on the flyer that I gave you guys, some things we're working on. My favorite part of my job is getting to work with kids. I love working with kids. We have some amazing kids in Lee County. We had the opportunity, thanks to some additional funding I was able to secure, to take 3 students from Keokuk to the CADCA National Leadership Forum in Washington, D.C. just a couple weeks ago. We took a 6th grader and her mom and 2 juniors. We had a blast, but those kids also learned a lot. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be here tonight, but I will tell you one of their favorite things was the Capitol Hill Day. We got to go to the Capitol and actually speak to senators and legislators that represent Iowa. And those kids were very excited and impressed to learn that what they had to say mattered. All 3 of them spoke, and I will tell you that the 6th grade student we took was the youngest attendee for the whole forum, and she made quite an impression on every learning opportunity that we had on that because she's able to vocalize very well what's going on in Lee County. So some of the things the kids talked about was how they view substance use in our community and what they would like to have changed. So it was very exciting for them. There's a lot of legislator going up right now dealing with substance use prevention and some other issues that affect that as well, like mental health. So they were excited to see that their voices mattered. In my high school leadership group, I partnered with the high school leadership team. Sorry, group is my other one. Same names. They learned about marijuana and alcohol a lot this last couple of months. So my high school group actually went out and did 2 environmental scans at local retailers. I think the thing that impressed them or bothered them the most was placement of where alcohol is in outlets that are not primarily selling alcohol. So that was kind of eye-opening for them. My middle school group at the Y has really been focusing on marijuana, and they are getting ready to create and film a PSA for a video contest through Johnny's Ambassadors. So once that's done, I will be happy to share that. So those are my favorite things, but there's a lot else going on, like merchant alcohol training, compliance checks begin this month in Keokuk, just lots of things going on. So my email and contact is on here. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Do we have any more citizens' requests? Moving right along, we'll go to item number 6, consent agenda. Minutes of the regular city council meeting and council workshop of February 2nd, 2023. Minutes of the council budget workshop of February 4th, 2023. Cash receipts and treasurer's report of January 2023. Resolution approving a liquor license for Lucky's Irish Pub and Grub, 529 Blondo Street, effective March 3rd, 2023. Class C retail alcohol license pending DREM. Motion to pay the bills and transfers listed in the registers number 5324 through 5325. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 7, motion to approve initial reading of ordinances of the City of Keokuk, Iowa, amending Chapter 9.90 regarding operation of off-road utility vehicles and gold carts. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I need a roll call.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Altmans.
Aye.
Hellenthal,
Aye.
Andrews,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald. 7 ayes.
Do I have a motion to waive the second and third reading of this ordinance?
So moved.
I need a roll call.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Altmans.
Aye.
Hellenthal,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald.
Now we need a motion to adopt and give final approval to the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
I need a roll call.
Crenshaw,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Altmans.
Aye.
Hellenthal,
Aye.
Tillman,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Greenwald.
Aye.
Item number 8, consider resolution approving agreements for fireworks display with J&M Displays. I need a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Item number 9, consider resolution approving a grant agreement with the Iowa Finance Authority. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
The city has been awarded $600,000 through the Home Rehabilitation Block Grant Pilot Program. The program is designed to replace the current Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. CDBG rehabilitation projects were limited to owner-occupied homes. The pilot grant is not. Funds can be used for rental properties and vacant properties. Grant is specific to a certain area in the city adjacent to the business district, and I'll show a map here in a second. Properties had to be identified as part of the application and have been pre-selected. When you look on the map, there's a purple line, but it's hard to see, but you see the four different yellow corners. That is the outlines the corners of the boundaries.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Item number 10, consider resolution approving contract for legal services with Lynch Dallas PC. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
The city uses Lynch Dallas PC for certain legal services such as personnel matters. Lynch Dallas has modified their rate structure. The changes are as follows. Effective July 1, 2024, the city shall pay attorneys fees for the following hourly rates. Shareholders, $200, which is a plus of $15. Associates, $185, which is a plus of $10. Paralegals and legal assistants, $125, which is a plus of $10. And the city shall be billed attorneys' hourly rate for travel plus reimbursement for mileage at the federal rate as set forth above.
Did we discuss with them if they do things like those initial appearances?
Say that again, I'm
Did
sorry.
we ask them about things like city attorney work, if they do any of that?
They certainly will.
Okay.
The problem that, the reason why we don't use them for all of our city attorney work is that if there's a court hearing down here,
Oh, no, I know why. I just meant,
Yeah.
I know that we've got things with code enforcement and things like that where dates will become more, I guess we'll have a lot more of them.
Yeah, they're gonna.
right?
So I didn't know if we had agreed with that with our city attorney or if we needed to see if,
That's a discussion that we're going to have in the next week or two.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 11, consider resolution awarding a contract for Rand Park Pond restoration. I need a motion to approve.
Second.
The pond has leaked since fall of 2022. Staff did attempt to introduce materials that would hopefully seal the leak. It did not. We received 4 bids for removal and replacement of the clay liner. Advanced Earthwork LLC of Montrose, Iowa submitted the low bid of $49,550. Funds will be taken from the park improvement reserves.
Cole, how did we confirm that there's a leak in the pond? We haven't had much precip. I'm just wondering how we confirmed that.
Bob?
So you did test it by filling it and letting it go down? Okay. I've been asked, and that's why I told him I would ask and find out.
We were told that people couldn't hear us and that we need to use the microphones.
So I dumped bentonite in the pond. So I took it up to level and then dumped bentonite in, seeing if I could get it to seal up the pond. And it held for probably less than a week, and then it opened back up.
Okay,
So the pond it's draining itself as we speak.
okay.
What is the park improvement reserves?
What's that?
The funding that is being taken from the park improvement reserves, what is that?
Okay, so we have a fund of 002 where we have received donations over the years and other monies over the years, and it's built up a reserve fund of over $300,000.
Dorothy?
Dorothy Cackley, 620 J Street. I'm wondering what the rate of application was that you did on the bentonite. What is the rate of pounds bentonite per square foot that you applied to the pond to stop the leak?
Do you have that, Bob? How much did you put in? Okay, so how big are the bags? 20-some bags how big are the bags? Okay, so 28-pound bags.
Okay. Have you determined where there's a soft area indicating the leakage?
So, the summary is that we've we've cambered the overflow and we've taken a look at the overflow. And as Michael said, and without draining the pond completely, it'd be hard to find exactly where the spot is.
Okay.
The bentonite is just a hope and a prayer. Let's put it that way. It works to what percentage, I don't know. I know I've used it on several ponds around the state in my line of work, and maybe 25% of it worked. And Most time we did it was by engineer specs. They spec'd it out, and every one of them's different. Bentonite is a hope, a temporary fix.
One man's opinion. I talked to Mr. Carroll today regarding the dimensions of the pond. I was given 18,000 square feet. I consulted a dealer in Bentonite, and the correct application rate is 3 pounds per square foot. If you do the math, that's 54,000 pounds. He said that a semi truck of this would cost or would provide 45,000 pounds. That would be a application at the rate of 2.5 pounds per square foot. And that whole truckload would cost $3,600. The freight, he even willfully priced at being $2,590 for a going rate of $6,190 if you were to do the correct application of the bentonite.
Dorothy, I have a quick question. Who did you say told you this, and what's his credentials? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
He's a dealer in bentonite
He sells bentonite?
located in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And he said regretfully they would not travel this far to do the application. But if we were located in Texas, the maximum cost would be $20,000. $20,000 is significantly less than $49,500.
The soil in Texas is by far different than the soil in southeast Iowa.
Yes, it's sandy and much more porous. The other thing that I want to point out is I also know people in the pond making business. I asked about the size of a pond that could be built for $49,000. And at 15 foot deep, he said 3 acres liberally. How does that compare? That would be equivalent to 2 square city blocks. I think this is a horrendous investment into such a small project. I would like to see you reconsider, maybe consult more people about the use of the correct application of bentonite. Thank you.
I have built ponds. I do this for a living. I am a heavy equipment operator. I'm certified landfill operator. I have built containment cells, leachate ponds for the state, for Barker Lamar, which is a big outfit that takes in about 7 states as far as leachate and waste. And I believe this guy is off on his numbers a little bit.
Any more discussion?
How many quotes did we receive?
4.
And
And also, another thing with the quotes in an underlying ailment is there's probably a good 6 to 8 inches of settlement, and the old small riprap that was around the edges is all inside of that pond now. To go and start dumping a bunch of bentonite in, you're gonna be lucky that it even reaches the clay. You know, the clay liner that would be underneath all the settlement. So that's one of the issues we have with dumping in the bentonite. And then, like John is saying, it's kind of a shot in the dark, and I just can't imagine putting a truck of bentonite in a pond that small. I just don't know where all that material would go, I guess.
Bentonite swells, many times it's regular size dry. That's how it works. And like you said, with the amount of silt that's in there, the chances of it getting down in to the crevice itself and finding its way to the leak is a lot harder in a pond that has that many years of settlement and riprap and everything else has been thrown in it. I'm not so sure that we're not going to find out that that overflow pipe needs to be replaced, or at least a portion of it, prior to putting the clay liner in. I'm really surprised that wasn't figured in.
It could be, when I talked to Michael at the sewer department, the thought was if the joints were found to be leaking, we would reseal them.
Okay.
And we would do that on our own.
Right. Sounds good.
Brian, you would know better than I do. Do you think the quote is reasonable?
So, I don't know if it was included in your packet. Our engineer's estimate was 48,786, something along those lines. The next low bid was 66,000. Then one next to that was 69,000. And then our high bid was 81,000. So I do think it's reasonable, yes.
How long has it been since we've done any sort of this maintenance or repair? How long has the pond?
My recollection and talking to the guys that's been with the city, it's been around 12 to 15 years. It was drained and resealed.
Is this something that is going to have the same lifespan?
I mean, it's
I
hard
mean,
to.
I'm just saying, is there any sort of guarantee on anything?
No, and also weather conditions with a clay liner, you know, if we've had a lot of dry seasons, which can start cracking as that pond evaporates even, you'll get some cracks in the liner. So it's not a guarantee, but I would venture to say you'd get another good 12 to 15 years out of it.
So would this be just considered something that's on the long-term aspect that every 12 to 15 years, this is something that you have to do because we want to have a pond in Rand Park?
I don't have enough historical data to answer
Say
that.
Yeah.
I would say it would depend on when they take the sediment out and they take that 8 inches of liner out. And there may be something that shows up, some kind of fissure that shows up, be it a tree root over the years that's finally decayed. That's what jeopardized it this time. I think once it's drained, once all that's out, we can actually see what we're working with and determine at that time, is this something that we're going to have to plan for every 12, 15 years? Or is this something that's come back to haunt us from 30 years ago that's showing up now and we're having to deal with it? So draining it and doing it correctly will give us a lot more insight than throwing something in the water and hoping it finds it.
And the other alternative would be to put a rubber type liner in there. And that would be 3 to 4 times this amount. So theoretically, you could fix the pond 4 or 5 times and be money ahead on putting an actual rubber liner in it.
Thank you.
I do not recommend a liner of that sort. A rubber APDM would be better than the poly liners. And I kind of discussed it with Mr. Carroll before the bids came out. Any liner that's outside of the water, when the sun hits it, it expands, it contracts, it pulls, it's ugly. You put rock on it, you have people out there ice fishing or ice skating, and they run a skate into it. They just jeopardize it. So anytime the water gets above that, it's already been jeopardized. It has to be repaired. The clay is the best, I believe, in this situation. If it was contaminated leachate, I'd say no. The state doesn't allow clay anymore. But in this application, I think clay is our best bet, and to see what we've got.
When Ms. Cackley comes up here and says that amount would be a 3-acre pond, is that safe to assume the pond doesn't have a liner? Or?
You're talking about when she said we could build a 3-acre pond for that?
Yeah.
Well, the aspects of building a pond, they're digging.
To dig and throw in an 8-inch liner is one thing. To pump it, to drain the sediment out of it, to take that out of it and to turn around and haul it back in and then to compact it back in is different. There's more in there. I still think that you're not going to build a 3-acre pond unless all you're doing is building a dam. This isn't building a dam. This is removing 360 degrees all the way around it. And it's not out in the middle of a field where you can just sling it. I actually looked at the job because my boss bid it. We have sidewalks. We have a fourth of it, a third of it that you can't get to readily, easily at all. There's sidewalks, there's benches, there's overflow, there's permeable pavers. So it's delicate. There's only one way in, one way out. You're limited on what you're doing, which also drives this price up a little bit more.
When is the work going to be scheduled? The timeline?
Right now, we're hoping for mid-March. It's obviously weather-driven. The contract states that the contractor has 6 weeks from the start date that we give him. So if they can start, say, March 21st, he'll have 6 weeks from that date to finish it.
Okay.
The plan is to have it filled and restocked so they can hold their fishing tournament on 4th of July weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Item number 12, consider resolution authorizing the issuance of $4,995,000 general obligation capital loan notes and levying a tax for the payment thereof. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
The resolution authorizes the issuance of 4,995,000 GO bonds for street and road repair. The resolution also authorizes the levying of a property tax for payment of the bonds.
So I have some questions. And I apologize. I was trying to figure out what adding, so we have from the revenue bonds that were with the wastewater treatment plant, we've moved those now over to GO bonds. So that's approximately going to be $12 million.
12 million is the total commitment we have for SRF. We have not taken any loan money, or we're not obligated to pay the last loan for another year. So right now we're at probably more around 9, close to 10 million.
Okay, so $9 to $10 million. Let's put a nice round number, $10 million, say that. And now we've added an additional $5 million for roads. So in one foul swoop, we've added $15 million to debt service. How does that impact our debt service levy?
Right now I'm projecting the debt service levy to go, I don't have the exact number, but it's going to go somewhere around $4 per thousand.
So how does that impact our taxpayers?
If they have a $100,000 house, we tax on now 54% of it. So you take 54 times.
Just do
4.
50, easy math.
50 times 4.
So then you're adding a $2 increase per thousand for each house. I mean, for each, so for your valuation's $100,000 for a house. I have a real, that makes me a little anxious. Feel like that's a lot of money, actually, after we've already just increased gas and electric franchise fees by 3%. And in the end, that's increasing our tax rate. If you look at these documents here, estimated tax rate from being nearly $19 to be, and yeah, $19 to $22.50, a little bit more than 22.5. And I think that's a serious conversation to be had about what that looks like. I know that we were not planning on taking $12 million or $10 million from revenue debt to general obligation debt, but this is a serious conversation, I think, that we have to understand.
I mean, I hate the idea of raising anything on citizens. However, I can say pretty confidently that everyone's number one complaint in the city is streets. And if we put it off any further, we're going to have streets worse than they already are. And we're not going to be able to come back on some of them. That's my only concern.
So we have 161 miles of road, I think. Is that what somebody said? Okay. And how much will this $5 million make an impact on it this year?
So a portion of that is going to be dedicated to the South 18th project, probably around $3 million. The rest of it will then be used for street repair in other parts of the town. We do have a assessment that has been completed. It was completed before Brian came on board, and it was ready basically the day Robert left. So we will be presenting that at a future meeting to be able to determine what other streets we want to look at. What we would probably do is look at streets that are, in order to maximize our return, look at streets that are viable for mill and fill. In 2019, we did approximately 13 blocks for $800,000. And that's include engineering. So with $2 million or somewhere around that amount, you could probably expect with today's dollars being 20 to 22 blocks.
And the plan, though, is, from my understanding, is that we were going to do $5 million for 3 years in a row?
Correct. When I did a long-term analysis of the debt before the revenue bonds were shifted over, it did not fluctuate the debt service levy to extremes. It stayed pretty level within, 10 to 20 cents up or down.
So 10 to 20 cents versus $2.50
Well, 10 to 20 cents per thousand.
per thousand. Okay.
If we don't do, excuse me, if we don't do this, how does that impact South 18th?
How does it impact? Excuse me again.
If we don't pass this to have this money available to us, how does that impact South 18th?
We do not have sufficient funds otherwise to do South 18th.
So,
If we don't pass this, we won't do South 18th.
no, I understand that. So my curiosity is that knowing that if we do $5 million, but we only have 20 blocks that we'll do with the mill and fill, could we just bond for the amount of money that would do for us to do complete South 18?
Yes, we would have to restart the process, I believe, because that changes the amount.
But is there, because when do these bonds roll off? The next bond rolls off, you said last year, and that's only $1 million.
Correct.
And then when's the next bond that rolls off?
I believe the next ones are rolling off somewhere around, I don't have it in front of me, 2027, 2028.
So then that means for the foreseeable 4 to 5 years, we're going to be having a property tax rate of 22 to 23 cents,
Depending upon the valuation, yes.
depending on the valuation.
If we say we have $5 million available, are we going to pay on the full 5, or are we going to pay what we take out?
No, we pay on the full 5. For the upcoming fiscal year, all we have is interest payments.
Brian, have you seen the inventory list of the streets?
Yes, it's on my desk.
What do you think it will look like in 5 years if they're continually neglected?
Significantly worse. So the initial inventory study was done, I want to say 5-ish years ago. And what Cole was talking about that they completed right before Robert left is they went and reevaluated the streets. From what I've looked at, they've significantly deteriorated in the last 5 years. Streets that were, so it's like on a 100 scale rating, the highest being the worst. Streets that say maybe were a 35 years ago or 70 now. And a lot of the asphalt streets are just going to continue to deteriorate at a rapid rate.
And my understanding with the $5 million or what was left over, we would have to fix streets that weren't at 100 rate. They would have to be at like 60.
So that's going to be, when we present this to the council, that's obviously going to be a decision we have to make. Also within that, we do have certain intersections and certain blocks of streets where we could fill in between those. And then you would have a complete block of say concrete pavement there that you just made that area last another 20 years. And that's all part of that evaluation too.
How much do we have in reserves currently?
I'm sorry, say that again.
How much money do we have in our reserves?
In our reserves for which fund? Or total?
In general, so our general,
Well, our general fund, right now, I think we're running a balance. If you include the balances for employee benefits, the emergency levy, and local option sales tax, we're probably running 3.5 to 4 million.
what is that the percentage of our,
Given that our general fund budget is projected to be a little over 10 million, so we're at 33% maybe.
and what about overall though?
Overall, we sit well overall. We sit well overall. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, and I don't want to take a guess, but overall, we're okay. I mean, there are some departments that, especially the bridge department, that we've got to address.
But
But,
I thought we talked this morning and you said we only had 10%.
well, right, I said right now, as our balances are right now.
As our balances are right now.
As our balances are right now. Now, so that might include some funds that are earmarked for projects that we haven't spent yet.
So then where are we going to be in a year's time on our reserves?
That I have not yet to calculate because I'm waiting for the state to tell us what our new valuations are.
Do you believe it's going to be around 25%, which is what's recommended?
It could be, I expect it to be probably a little lower than 25%.
Okay. And then if we continue to take out $5 million every year, we will be even lower.
I think the $5 million was on a 3-year cycle.
Every 3 years. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification because that was the question. That's what I was saying. Like,
Right.
okay.
Is there a way for us to see the street plan, like the areas that we're looking at for this?
Like right now,
Well, I don't want to I don't want to vote on something right now that the taxpayers are going to pay through their property taxes when I haven't seen.
I
What
can give you
streets
a
we're
copy.
thinking
I can
about
give you a
fixing.
copy of the evaluation forms. if
Yeah,
you
we
would like
haven't
to
seen
see.
any of that.
So the thought on this for these evaluation forms, when they get finalized, we're going to take the worst streets. We can highlight those on a map that you can have when we bring this to council. And you can kind of get like a color-coded hierarchy of where we're at. Also, until we pass to go for this $5 million, it's kind of a minute conversation to have. If we don't have the money to fix the streets, we're obviously not going to be able to fix the streets.
I disagree though, because I'm not given all of the information to make a decision like this. So if we're going to spend most of the money on 18th Street and then what little we have left towards everything else, I want to know what those couple other streets are before we make this big decision. Because everybody's property taxes are going to be paying for it.
It ultimately doesn't matter to me what streets are on there as long as streets are being fixed.
There's a lot of them.
I just mean like, I want all the streets in Keokuk fixed, so
And I
When
can
do we-
provide you
Saying here are
with,
the
I can
streets.
provide you with the stack that's about that thick of the evaluations if you'd like to review them before we
Okay.
bring it to council. Okay.
So
When
one of
do
the,
we have to have, I mean, is this something we could table to the next meeting? That's my question, I guess, is what is the deadline for
Well,
making a decision on that?
I can't tell you what if delaying this will cause problems with the issuance or not. Yeah, I can't tell you that. I'd have to consult with an attorney on whether or not, or bonding attorney on whether or not um, uh, that would cause problems.
Because I gotta kind of agree with Chris and Roz both. I mean, we've been here almost 20 years, bought our house in '05. And anybody that's been in Keokuk very long, that is, Rosalind stated that very well. The biggest complaint almost anybody in town or out of town has is the streets in Keokuk. You know, the joke is, well, you know you're in town because your stuff's falling off your dash. But in the same sense, I would vote to at least fix some of them versus not doing anything. And hopefully then the next 3 to 5 year cycle, when we do this again, 18th will be done. Now we can potentially get $3 to $5 million and work on 40 to 50 blocks versus 20 blocks, and have it in a long-term goal, because there are a lot of streets. And I mean, I live on a dead-end street that, other than the snow plows coming down it, it's never been touched. You know, and it's gradually getting worse. And that's one small block. So I know, and I drive all over town, and they're gradually getting worse. I totally agree with what Brian said. You know, 5 years ago, a street that was borderline now is drastic. And like anything else, everything costs money, and we know that. But if we just keep kicking the can down the road, oh, well, we'll push that back. 3 years from now, we're going to have to spend a whole lot more money just to get where we are now, versus potentially at least fixing some of them and then moving forward. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But I would be in agreement with at least moving forward on it. And I'm with Chris. I would like to know what streets we're looking at before we make a final decision on
Yeah, we keep,
what streets maybe. But I think as far as knowing, yeah, we definitely want to do this, I'm in 100% agreement for that. But I'd like to be involved in maybe deciding at least some of the designation of which streets get picked.
Well, and that's what we'll present to the city council at a future meeting, right? So, but as Brian pointed out, without the funds, you can't make a decision on what streets to fix because we don't have the money to fix the streets.
So before they before they choose what streets to do, that will come to us.
Right.
We'll know then, so we will have approval of that.
Right. Like I said,
will
I would vote in agreement with doing the bond and go ahead and getting the loan done. My vote would be yes on that. But once we get the money, I'd like the city council
Right.
to be involved with some of the street designation, because then we can actually, you know, we've got people in our wards and such, and if we always go to the same parts of town to work on them, that's where you're going to have a lot of
So
problems.
the evaluation is going to go before the council with recommendations from myself and my department, and then it will ultimately be up to the council whether you vote to do street A, street B, or street C. The majority of this $5 million, as Cole said, is going to go to 18th Street. And it's a little bit different animal than doing an overlay or a mill and fill, because it's a complete reconstruction. So we're redoing all the underground utilities along with the road, which jacks the price way up.
So my opinion on this is that up until this conversation, the council has been completely committed to at least roughly $15 million over the next 9 years in loans to work on the roads, which we know 15 million isn't going to fix all the roads. So I'm not concerned about approving the money for this first initial amount and then figuring out what roads we're going to do, because no matter how much money we bond for, we're not going to get all the roads done. So we have to start somewhere. And if we don't start, then we're no different than the last 20 years where nothing got done.
If we choose to table it, I do encourage everyone to go to the street department. I spent a couple hours there last week, and even $2 million, they would stretch it really far. They have worked really hard to get a good system down. They, I feel like, are a really good group of people who are working hard to do the best they can with the limited resources they have. So I feel like it would go as far as they possibly could make it go.
I brought this up for conversation because I think it was important that we recognize how this is going to impact our taxpayers, and that we understand how tax levies work when we're doing all of our budgeting as well. You know, we're increasing 5%, less than 0.5% annually on our valuations, and our expenses are continuously rising. But I just want us to have a bigger conversation around what is the future of the city look like financially. And the higher our tax rates go, and I will tell you, I have a lot of people that talk to me, I had a call today about it, that people are looking for properties outside of Keokuk because of our tax rates. And I know lots of people that live outside of Keokuk that have always stated that they live outside of Keokuk because of the tax rates. So I just think that there's something that we need to recognize, that we have declined in population significantly. And with that, that means that you also have to have conversations around then how do we as a community adjust.
So Cole, the only option for repayment of these is property tax, right?
Yes, the only way to effectively get street repairs done is to issue general obligation bonds, which go on property tax. Our road use tax fund does not have sufficient distributions from the state to complete large projects. In most years, we might have, if we don't put any money in reserves and we don't have to buy capital equipment or something like that, we could have $300,000. But again, we try to build a little bit of a reserve so that when we buy a street sweeper or a new snowplow or something like that, we buy it from reserves rather than getting a loan for it, which would then go on property tax. But to do large scale street repair, general obligation bonds are the only option we have.
Okay, any more discussion? Dorothy? She took care of it? Okay. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 13, consider resolution approving and authorizing a form of loan and distribution agreement by and between the City of Keokuk, Iowa, and the Iowa Finance Authority, and authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $3,160,000 taxable general obligation refunding capital loan notes, Series 2023B of the City of Keokuk, Iowa, under the provision of the Code of Iowa, and providing for a method of payment of said notes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
This authorizes the form of loan and disbursement with Iowa Finance Authority and converts $3,160,000 of SRF loans from sewer revenue to general obligation in order to use the debt service levy. This is the first of 3 actions. The reason why it's being broken up and not done all at once is because under Iowa code, we have to be considered as 3 separate issuances, and they have to be spaced apart in order to comply with code.
How long are these bonds again? 10 years?
What's that?
These will grow off in 10 years.
Yeah, these, I believe, 10 years.
10 years. And these, we don't have much options because these were from revenue bonds that were from the wastewater treatment plant that helped sewer separation as well.
Correct.
We really don't have any options. This is just something we got to do because of the closure of ADM.
The only other option is to drastically increase sewer rates.
Is what?
To drastically increase sewer rates.
Are we also increasing sewer rates?
There is a proposed increase of 10% in order to balance the sewer fund.
So we're increasing 10% on sewer rates. Are we increasing any other rates in the city of Iowa? I mean, in the city of Keokuk in the foreseeable future? Water or anything? Are we any water or anything?
Any water?
Is the water going to change, or is it just the wastewater, the sewer rates?
I can't tell you on the water because yeah, Waterworks sets that.
Well, they're the municipal water works. You could ask them. It just did? It just went up 10%? Okay. Nickel and diamond. No, it's a municipal waterworks. They are a government entity. No, I know. They have their own board, but they're a city entity. They're just not underneath the city council. Okay, thank you.
Cole, these transfers from revenue bonds to general obligation bonds due to ADM closing, are these, all these series that we're doing, these just one-time deals that we need to do to balance that out? Or years down the road, are we looking at having to do another wave?
Well,
if things
this
don't
is,
change?
you do further loans or further conversions?
Either.
No, this would be these are the only conversions at this point. We do have another SRF loan that we were using for a planning grant that we're not obligated at this point to pay on. In the next 2 years, I believe, that will come to fruition, and at that time, we can look at what we want to do, whether we want, if we have sufficient revenue in the sewer fund, we can pay for the sewer fund, or then it would go on debt service.
Okay.
But that one is roughly $2 million.
So can you explain again, I guess, the method of payment for these? Did you say the sewer was going to raise or?
Well, no, we were paying these through the sewer fund, and we're going to switch them over to general obligations so that they can be paid through the debt service levy. Councilmember Altman's asked if we were going to have an increase in sewer rates, and right now I'm proposing a 10% on residential, and Tom and I will be presenting the industrial rates at a future meeting as well.
So then that is going to be the method of payment for these?
No,
That's separate.
that's separate.
So is the property tax is going to go up for this one too?
Yes, that's included in that. That's included in that. There's a projected increase.
Page 6, item B.
So the projected increase is from $18.95, approximately $18.95 to $22.60.
So basically over $2 for what we just talked about and then over $2 for this, right?
No, it's all.
No.
Oh,
It's all in one.
okay.
It's all in one.
Well, you went from 18 to 22, so.
Right. Right.
Okay, you're working on the 3,160,000 now, and then following is a 1,383,000. And I'm assuming it's going to be part of another tax increase?
So
Correct.
these are all three related to the 12 million of the revenue with this wastewater treatment plant. That 12 million that was on revenue, which would have happened with ADM paying and everything, that we have to move over to general obligation. And so as Cole had stated, they have to do it in 3 different forms due to code.
Okay, my point I'm getting to is that if you add these two together, you get 4.543 million. And if you subtract that from the 12.75, you're dealing with another 8 million, 0.2 at one time.
There's 2 that are 3 million.
Right. So what it is that's the total SRF loans that we're obligated. And as I explained, we have a planning loan right now that we're not paying on and don't have to for, I believe, another 2 years. So once that comes due, so actually the total amount of conversion is closer to $9.5, $10 million versus the 12 million. And when the 2 million comes due, then the council can decide if we have sufficient revenues in sewer, they can pay through the sewer fund, or they can look at placing it on general obligation in the future.
Okay.
Any more discussion? We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 14, consider resolution approving and authorizing a form of loan and disbursement agreement by and between the City of Keokuk, Iowa, and the Iowa Finance Authority, and authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $1,383,000 general obligation refunding capital loan notes, Series 2023C, and providing for a method of payment of said notes, approval of the tax exemption certificate.
So moved.
I just want to clarify. So there's only the one $3 million one and then the $1 million one? I thought there was three of them.
Well, there'll be a third one, but
It won't be until 2 years.
well, no, there's a third one that we have to convert, but we can't do it all at one meeting. So in a future meeting, we'll.
That's what I would,
finish-
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because I was like, okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. I was like,
And
okay,
then-
the
and then
math in my
once-
head.
And once all the currents are taken care of, there is a future one of about $2 million that we can discuss on how we want to pay it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, City Administrator.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 15, motion to approve evaluation by an engineer for 629 Main Street paid for by the ARPA.
Tom and Carissa Crenshaw have offered to purchase and renovate 629 Main. They are requesting an evaluation by an engineer to determine feasibility of installing internal staircases. This has normally been the responsibility of the developer, but in order to move the project forward, we proposed using a portion of the $100,000 ARPA funds allocated to the project to engage the engineer. City will own the plans, and if the Crenshaws decide not to move forward, we do have it available for any other potential developer.
How do these engineering plans differ from what the city has already committed to do or has done on the other addresses on Main Street for this project?
Well, in this case, it's more of it isn't necessarily they're creating plans. What they'll do is they'll do an evaluation to determine if the internal staircases can be put into code and everything else. I wouldn't expect this to be a high dollar item. As far as the other ones on 600 block, we had a structural engineer walk through. He didn't do a full testing, but did walk through and determine that the buildings are still sound at this point.
I thought we had a structural engineer that created a report and stamped it
Or
for the other 600 block buildings.
correct?
Yeah.
That's what I just said. He walked
Okay.
through it. He walked through it and he created a report. He didn't do any testing, but
He didn't do any testing, but what I'm saying though, he stamped his approval on it with his PE
yes,
to say
yes,
that
he
this
did.
is my,
He did create a
opinion.
report and that the buildings are stable currently.
that's what I was going to say. Yes.
Okay, we don't have a first or a second on this yet, so we
I'll
need
make,
to do-
also move.
Second.
That's okay. Any
Pam.
more discussion then? We have a first and a second now.
I just want to clarify, because when I talked to you, you said the engineer had only went through the buildings on Main Street and not this building.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, they did not go through 629.
So then if the city does take care of engineers looking at 629, it is equivalent to how the city has already taken care of engineers looking at the other property.
Not necessarily. Generally, when we have, if I have an engineer take a look at a property, it's generally for structural reasons as far as safety. So we want to make sure that, there's, if the foundation is, got some issues, that we're not looking at it to fall at that point. That's generally, and so when we're trying to get a developer into the 600 block buildings, there are some fairly major issues in there. So to try to get a developer to be more comfortable taking on the project, we wanted, actually, it was Southeast Iowa Regional Planning who obtained the engineer to walk through. We haven't been charged for that. I don't know if he's going to charge us for that. I think that he was an acquaintance with one of the employees there. Regardless, it was just to make sure that they were structurally sound so the developer could go ahead and do the project, if we can find one.
I would think this would be a fairly inexpensive evaluation because all he's really going to do is he's going to go in and he knows, okay, we're going to, because the building has never had an internal staircase, is my understanding. So he's got to go in and make sure, okay, when we cut a hole in the floor, we're not going to
Correct.
basically deteriorate the structure of the building. That shouldn't take him a long time to figure that out. There really, I would
say a
I would
couple
think we ought to
hours.
move forward with this. So, I mean, and I didn't realize that they actually made a proposal in 21 and we're still thinking about it. I'm kind of surprised we've waited this long, but I cannot imagine this being a real high dollar cost because it's not like he's going to go in and actually physically do hardly anything. It's mostly just go in and get a good look. He'll go in the basement, he'll go upstairs. Okay, we want to put the staircase here. Yeah, we can cut this out. You know, it's construction 101 for the most part. And I would think it would be a pretty inexpensive, even though we're still talking engineer fees, it'd be a pretty relatively inexpensive fee, I would think.
Correct.
I personally feel just fine with it as long as the city uses the ARPA funds that have already been designated to that building, and then also that the city retains the report. You know, even if they choose not to move forward with the project, then we have it for another developer. So
Correct. And what this does is, and the Crenshaws know this, is that if it costs us $2,000, then what they have left in ARPA funds for the entire project is $98,000.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
All opposed?
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 16, boards and commissions.
We have a second notification for Historical Preservation Commission, but we do need a vote on a mayor appointment to the Public Library Board. Catherine Marion with term to expire 7/1/25.
so moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 No more boards or commissions? Okay, item number 17, council liaison reports.
I will be coming to the next meeting with a special event request to do a 5K for the Oakland Cemetery Initiative Group for July 1st, I believe, or 2nd. Don't quote me on that. And I just wanted to remind council members to try to get out and see some of our city departments. And so far, it's been going really well, and everyone's really welcoming. So if you have time, try to meet up with some of your department heads.
Okay, item number 18, staff reports.
Let's start.
Well, I have good news. The mayor, Ann Cole, was informed, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, that we did receive the Comprehensive Neighborhood Planning Grant. That's for $25,000. That was the same timeline as when we applied for the 600,000 housing grant. So we will get a planning consultant. They will make a plan for the area that we have indicated that we would like, which is city owns quite a bit of property in Blondo Concert 5th to 8th. And if the plan is clear, practical, and effective, it will lead to an invitation for up to $1.75 million in activity for that area. So what we're hoping, some discussions were triplexes, duplexes, and I believe actually 629 was part of that, hopefully part of that plan. So that was extremely good news.
What's the timeline on that?
I believe it's a year. We will get the housing committee together. We will do an RFP or an RFQ for a planning consultant. which we'll bring to the city council for approval on that one, and then we will start working with that individual.
What the council has to realize is that because we got the 25,000, we can apply for that 1.75 million. And that doesn't go just to fix houses. That is to fix the neighborhood. So that can be sidewalks, that can be streets, that can be open space. So there's a lot of things that can be done with those funds if we were able to get those. Tom?
Sure. The cleaning of the digester is coming along very well. We're not running into any major problems. They're gaining on it a little bit every day, but it's coming along. And do you want me to mention the other project we're looking at, or? wait a
Well,
little
yeah,
bit?
I'll give the background. We met with Chris Linder of LCL Farms to discuss the sledge hauling, and he came up with an idea that might run him out of the business for us, but go ahead, Tom.
Sure. In the back of my mind, through the years, I thought about, right now we do recycle our sludge. We spread it on farm ground, and it's an excellent fertilizer. But just the quantity of it and what it would take to get up to the level of disinfection, raising our sludge up to Class A involved quite a bit of money, and I just didn't think it was even anywhere near being feasible. But Chris suggested, we look at drying our sludge and possibly bagging it and selling it as a fertilizer on a homeowner level. The city of Milwaukee has been doing this for almost 100 years. They were one of the first in the nation to recycle their city sludge into usable product by homeowners, golf courses, whoever wanted to get in on it. And it's an awesome idea. And since we don't need, with ADM leaving, another press like we had, we're thinking about redirecting that bonding, those funds, towards a dryer to disinfect and dry. I don't know if it would pelletize it or what kind of finished product you'd have, but it would be disinfected and it would be handleable as a soil amendment by about anybody who wanted to use it. And I thought that was an awesome idea that he came up with. And I spoke with an engineer from Veenstra and Kim today, and he's going to consult another engineer with a firm. And we're going to have a conference sometime next week, on maybe a video conference, to further, because there's a lot of things you got to consider that could throw wrenches into the gears on something like this. And I'd like to be able to eliminate all those. It's, we'll see how they play in to the whole equation, but it's a really refreshing idea.
Tom, I have a quick question. You was talking about it sanitizing, basically. Does that mean that this fertilizer could be used for human consumption plots as far as gardens and stuff?
Yep.
Yep.
'Cause I know the
100%.
standard right now, they don't unless
Right.
it's to that grade, so.
Yep, and that falls under EPA regulations going from, we're currently a Class B sludge producer, and that's fine. That's suited, our needs through the years. You can spread it on farmland. But Class A, those guidelines are issued by the EPA, and they'd be strictly followed, and anybody could use it.
So I have a quick question, Tom, about when it comes down to our capacity at the plant. We do have a capacity that's much higher than we're currently using. Is that the case?
Capacity to digest at the plant, to treat. With ADM leaving, that did create a void, and that's something that we're going to look at too. Whether or not we have enough solids coming into the plant that it would work well. We don't want to spend a lot of money on a dryer only to have a small amount of solids that we're able to dry and to bag and sell.
So then maybe if we're looking at community and economic development side of it, like industries, for instance, like what kind of industries are going to be able, that would use that kind of capacity? Would that be?
Oh, like if a new industry came into town?
Yeah.
I don't know. We've been working on our headworks design, you know, what we can take as a plant. And w- the numbers that we had been using for solids in particular were much higher than what the plant was designed for. And I'm not sure how that got figured in. But now we're going to issue our industrial permits at a level that is realistic to where we can realistically handle stuff. And I want to say we're leaving maybe a 25 or 26% open area to accommodate anything new.
Thank you.
One thing Tom failed to mention is that the dryer would then use the methane created at the plant. So we wouldn't have to buy gas
Well,
to run it.
hopefully we'd be able to
Right.
use power the dryers 80% of the gas that we produce at the plant, maybe 20% natural gas that comes in. We don't know because of the solids, you know, we're still finding out how our sludge works and what the gas it produces, you know, with the different dynamics of the sludge that's coming in. So it's kind of exciting.
There's got to be some kind of funding out there with the new Green Deal that's
Yep,
sweeping the world. There has to be more funds out there to
there is.
help us get this going.
And speaking with the engineer today, he said that there are funds out there available, and I don't remember the specific grants category that fell under, but he was aware of them, and I didn't know about them, but he was aware of them, and that would be included in our next week's conversation.
Thanks, Tom. Brian?
Update on 18th Street. Cole and I met with the engineer on the 7th. We discussed the earmark funding that we had received. The federal government is going to run that through HUD monies instead of DOT monies, which has a little bit different requirements than what you might be used to for a roadway project. One of them is they require an environmental review, which hopefully the engineers can get us a categorical exclusion on that, so we don't have to spend another $20,000 to $30,000 for that review. They just submitted a project report to us today that they're going to send off through regional planning to try to get this review. There's this kind of a process to go through. Other than that, we discussed, they presented 3 different roadway profiles, 2 of which had bike lanes included in it. We're looking at that option. Reason being is we can get additional funding if we include bike lanes on the project. And like I said, those are all still in discussion. We also asked for an additional estimate to do sidewalk infill on the south side. As you know, right now, we're just proposing replacing sidewalk on the north. On the south, we still have to do the pedestrian ramps, which take up almost a quarter of a block on each side. So I just asked for an estimate of what it would cost to infill that. And they'll be getting back to us on that. Riverfront Trail, the contract amendment number 2 was just submitted to the DOT this week. That includes the archaeological review. And we'll obviously have to wait for the DOT approval on that. Included in that, we had to revise our benchmark dates, and they're as follows. We have to have a public hearing on or before April 18th. Final plans, specs, and estimates are to be completed on or before July 18th. And then a completion of all work, including the construction, on or before October 17th, which pushed us back approximately 4 months, which I'm not too excited about, but it might be a blessing in disguise. We'll skip the flooding season for construction. So, Tolmy Park tennis lights, all the materials have been ordered. We're going to upgrade that to LED. We're going to upgrade the timer to a push button instead of a dial. The issue being that the dial has been broken several times, which in turn will leave the lights on 24 hours a day, which burned out all the bulbs basically. The LED should give us about a 70% savings on the energy usage out there. The material should be in about sometime in March, hopefully. And you've probably noticed the Second Street intersection lights have been flashing. The cabinet, we need to replace the cabinet and the controller on those. The parts have been ordered and we're looking about a month lead time for the installation. We've been in contact with the Illinois DOT. They are going to place signs on the bridge coming to Keokuk next Tuesday, stop ahead signs. There's been quite a few reports of the coming from that side of just kind of blowing through the intersection, not slowing down. Jason has been in contact with Chief Baum. They're going to help close that intersection long enough to get the wiring changed over. So we'll have red flashing lights all the way around the intersection now, which hopefully draws more attention.
All I have is an update on our testing process. We did have 4 applicants successfully pass the written and the physical exam. We have interviewed all 4 of those candidates, and we're proceeding through that process. One of those candidates is only eligible because you guys changed the age as well as the living requirement. So we do appreciate that.
Any more? Anybody? Okay. Item number 19 is new business.
Madam Mayor, I have some new old business. I'd like to have an update on Amjet. Haven't heard anything in over a year.
So he sent an email. I thought I had forwarded to the council. I don't know if I did.
I might have not
Yeah, you might have
seen
missed it. The small generator turbine was installed on the dam. It didn't have all the kinks worked out of it. So according to Ameren, when we talked to them on Monday during the tour, he says he's coming back this spring to get it up and running.
Good.
All right, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will take an adjournment and we will be back in about 5 minutes. Everybody take rest. Stand up, rest. Move your legs around, do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Girls are out at North Scott again for like the 5th year in a row. This year they're gonna win. Ain't that? They pulled 88 points. Something like that. 20 something.
Yeah. It was like 5.
Yeah. They had 2 players that on an individual beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like that last time they played too. At one point, this was, I don't know, maybe a month ago. It was like 42. Well, coach's last home game of his career is top pass.
I'm into fidgets.
As it snaps me around.
Yeah, exactly. 1 second.
What's that about pain?
1 second.
What happened? We sling it with the best of them. Catchy logo. Maybe a jingle. Oh.
Can we get started, guys? Oh, Celeste isn't here yet. We got to wait for Celeste, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Call to order the council workshop, February 16th, 2023, immediately following our regular meeting. We are going to begin with Keokuk Convention and Tourism.
Hello, my name's Kirk. I have some board members with me tonight. Mike Beard, who's been a board member for probably 30-plus years. Wes Pohorsky, who's been a board member for 30-plus years. Ron Bonney, that's been a board member probably 10 years. And Leah Jones is probably been 5 years. Yeah. So here we are. Ask away.
Okay, so we have questions, but I don't want it to be taken offensively. Most of you have been board members longer than I've been alive. So I have,
Not offensive.
I'm just saying.
You didn't have to brag about it.
I'm saying that you know more about the business than I do. So I see the amount and the increase requested. I'm wondering what kind of new tourism is going to be brought instead of just advertising what we currently have.
New tourism comes with, you fall into it. We didn't know the Geode Fest was going to take off like it did, and it did. We didn't know the reenactment was going to last 28 years, and it did. Some things have come and gone and gone away from. We didn't know we were going to have a reaction to the camera like we did. We just fell into those. I mean, it's not easy to start a new event. I mean, it's, take a calendar and try to figure out a weekend where there's not something going on within a 20-mile radius, 30-mile radius. It's tough to start a new event. That being said, our plans are to increase the digital marketing with a lot of the new money that's going to be the $7,500 I asked for to raise the advertising budget from where it was 2 years ago back up to where it was. That was $7,500. I'd say the bulk of the new advertising will go digitally. A lot of that through Facebook. Again, you check the markets like the Salt Lake Cities, like the Des Moines, the St. Louis, the Chicagos of the world. It's very, very expensive. So that $7,500 wouldn't touch it. I mean, it was brought up to me about Pure Michigan. The Pure Michigan campaign. Everybody saw Pure Michigan on TV, and they spent millions and millions of dollars. And the state of Iowa has just started doing TV ads in selected markets: Minneapolis, Chicago, Omaha, and they just started it about 4 or 5 years ago. But it was because of budget, and they didn't have the budget to do it. So that being said, I'll talk a little bit about the digital advertising. One thing that's being noticed now, the QR codes. We put the QR codes on our visitor's guide and around about 6, 7 years ago. 6, 7 years ago, it wasn't the hot thing yet. It wasn't an automatic thing on our telephones, the QR reader. Now it is, and people are really starting to use it. So we're going to up that, up the usage and bring that back into our mix. about 7 years ago, we put out group itineraries on our website. And I got a copy of them here. And we also made up itineraries with the towns. People weren't ready for that yet, but now they are. They're wanting itineraries. They're wanting to be told where to go and what to do. So we're going to start that up. The Lake Cooper Loop is becoming a thing. This year, I might have told you, I might not have, but just to remind you, we entered and won a marketing contest for something called the Soul of Iowa. And the Soul of Iowa is a drone shots of a town or of an area. We did it for the Lake Cooper Loop, which is Fort Madison, Montrose, Keokuk, Hamilton, Nauvoo, and Nyota. Not much there, but it's on the loop. It's at the end of the bridge. And they will be coming in July to take drone shots. Go to the Soul of Iowa, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They use Okoboji, Des Moines, Indianola, and Decorah is the first 4 that they used last year. And this year they awarded 8 more, and we were one of them. And we're pretty proud of that. And it's getting one. We have a representative of the Lake Cooper Loop. Shai is going to talk about it at the. She's sitting on a panel this year at the Iowa Tourism Conference. They want to hear about all the collaboration that we're doing with Lake Cooper Loop. So these are some itineraries and some titles of the itineraries that we've made up. Family fun, great outdoors, taste of the region, churches and temples, river access and viewing, railway viewing, and rich local history. So those are categories that we're going to be pushing as a region, a new region that's basically between the Fort Madison Bridge and the Keokuk Bridge. So that we're planning on it, bringing in new people. We're going to have she's having a rail fan get together in April, and we're thinking about having a river cam gathering and inviting all the people that watch the river cam into Keokuk, because many of them talk about it's on their bucket list, or they want to come to Keokuk. They want to see where they're, how close you can really get to the river and stuff like that. So we're planning that potentially in April, but we may have to put it off till fall. We'll get the planning taken care of. But that's going to bring new people to town. So, I mean, we're working all the time, every day, for new people to come to town.
Well, then to piggyback off of that, if it's for advertising, sorry, I've had that brochure with me for like a month and I just left it on my table tonight. I've been looking it over and over again.
Mhm.
So in here, I'm assuming that it says 2023 to 2024. There's no QR code in this.
Right.
So will it be done in 25? And then there's a couple, like First Fridays aren't in here. Off the top of my head, Lou and Joe's Boutique is not in here. So I don't know how do the businesses come to you to make sure that they are represented?
They shouldn't have had to come to us, and you can't be 100%. I mean, I guarantee, I'll be the first to admit, you can't be the first. Every year, we make a list, and thanks for pointing out the parks. The parks were an oversight. This year, we always go through the businesses, services, ATM locations, service stations, emergency numbers, lodging, area antique shops, dining and lounges, and the changes in church service times. There's a
Oh,
lot to go through,
There-
and.
There's
but-
a ton
and-
of information. I just meant on like tourism events, like the first Fridays with Main Street. I feel like those bring a lot of people. Even their like, the trick or treating on Main Street, those events weren't listed. It was a
You're-
boutique. I thought you
you're-
guys did good with the parks.
Now, let me explain the
Mhm.
difference between those events and tourism events. I'm talking bringing people in from out of town. Those are primarily local events. Agreed?
Well, I would assume that they're a lot like the Fort Madison Wine Walk, and I have friends that come from Des Moines to come and do that, and they would come here for a First Friday as well, especially in the summer.
Well, I'm not going to talk numbers with you, but, because you don't know how many people are coming, from there. The first Friday, events like that will appear on the website. They're not in the visitor's guide, no, but they will appear on the website. We can change the website daily, if we need to. And that's one of the ways that we're going to correct this park situation. There's four or five things in the park. Horseshoe pit's no longer there. The dog park's there. We have handicap. We have that there's a handicap accessible playground in Tomey Park. We don't call it Bentley's Playground, so okay, we'll change that. And First Fridays will become a thing. They were not a thing last year. I'll guarantee you, because I was down on Main Street, and some nights they were. Some nights they were. Some nights they were nice events. Some Fridays there wasn't anybody down there, and the businesses down by me closed early. So well, it's just a new event. It's a new thing. It hadn't caught on yet, and we'll see if it catches on this year. But
So-
again, it's a difference between a local based event, and my job is to put heads in beds. And it's not going to put many heads in beds if it's all local people that come there.
So
I see your opinion, but I would also disagree. Because I think that it's also a responsibility of tourism to promote things that are happening in town and to recognize that Main Street is having these events and then put them in here. Because like Rosalind was saying, I'm sure there's people from Fort Madison coming down here. And
They're not staying in overnight, and it's not a head in a bed.
I don't think that matters, in my opinion.
Well,
There's-
then they can read it on the website.
I think my worry would be if I was visiting, I think, and we talked about this when I went to Waterloo, that they gave us like a bag and businesses got to support their own things to put in the bag. But if I was spending the night here, I wouldn't know that there was a First Friday. If I was here on a Friday night from out of town, I wouldn't know that it was there.
They wouldn't check the website and see what's happening in the city?
Well, if I have it's like a 12-page book, I would assume it was in there.
I'm sorry, I can't put everything in
No,
there.
I
mean,
understand. I was just.
I'm sorry, I missed it that night.
Okay.
And it's so important to you. But to the tourism industry as a whole, that wasn't important last year.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, Kirk, is how is the tourism board looking at potential next things? For instance, Lee County is surrounded by 3 rivers. And so I think the state of Iowa, and when Debbie was here, she talked about, having a water trails network. They're investing, we have currently 917 miles of designated water trails in Powell, Iowa. Des Moines is putting millions of dollars into creating some water trails in Des Moines, where a lot of young people live, but they would maybe come down. Like, what are those kind of other things that you're looking into to get involved in an aspect of like, how can we get, at the end of the Mississippi River and the end of the Des Moines River at the confluence of, Keokuk, that is the end of what many of those trails could lead to. And I was just curious if you're involved in any of those
Well,
conversations.
I'm somewhat involved. I've talked with Heather a lot about the Des Moines River Trail. I mean, bringing it down here. I'm not up to speed on it because I don't know when the meetings are, or if they've had more meetings on that trail. They talked about buying, or they've got a plot of land down here by Raritan's that they were going to use as a build up as maybe a site where they would take the boats out and what have you, but take canoes out. But I haven't been much further into that, but I'm aware of it and I would support it.
Yeah. So as a region, what are some of the things that we're doing though to be able to say what's the next best thing? What's the thing that we think is going to draw people into town? Is there, I mean, are you guys doing any planning? Are you guys having conversations? With Shay on board now? Shy is student on board now. Just curious.
What I just mentioned with the loop. I mean, with the loop, we're doing a lot of planning and a lot of talking involving that, and we've got contacts in Hamilton now that are going to work with us, and we went to Nauvoo Monday and talked with the leaders over there with Tom Grant, the chamber leader, and also Jeff Christensen, who is the head of the hotel motel tax, which has not done anything really besides sending people to Salt Lake City. They have not done anything for over a year. They have not had a tourism director for over a year. And just to make a point, what you can read into whatever correlation you want to, but they didn't have a tourism director last year, and their attendance at the pageant was down 20%. So, Leah, you want to say anything about the digital? Yeah, she's not prepared. Don't let me get a paper.
I'm not reading all of this, don't worry. I just picked them all up together because I brought copies for all the guys. In reference to a lot of the digital advertising and marketing and promotion that Kirk was referring to, it's not all just purely online digital advertising. It kind of encompasses it all. So when we say that, we do mean things like adding things like QR codes and links to our print advertising. So for example, what you brought up with the First Friday, completely agree. It was a really great event. It's something we constantly kind of find ourselves having to look at these larger things that we get so focused on those, that something like that is new and like you said, isn't 100% a hotel stay based things. They can fall through those cracks on those things. What we are going to do is with that print digital guide, we're also going to have an online visitors guide that is mostly similar, but it's going to be slightly more aimed toward that person that is maybe in the younger demographic, that's how they're gathering their information.
I might just insert, there is a digital guide on there now, but it's not interactive. It's not something that we can change. It's just a PDF of the present business guide.
Yeah, right now there is. The new one will be interactive to where we can go in. It's not just a picture, like he said, a PDF of that. It's something where we can go in, and as soon as we have the First Friday, agenda for the entire year, we can go in there and add that and have links to Main Street's page and maybe have links to the Facebook event. And so I really do think there's a large generation that do still consume their information in that way, and that's kind of more geared toward them. We're going to have the online version that is slightly different and geared and pushed toward the people that are consuming their information that way. And it will have the QR codes. And another thing we were actually thinking about doing is in the hotel rooms, right next to, if they'll let us, put something in there on the desk on the side that's got a little QR code on it and says, hey, here's the visitor's guide, but here's an updated list of local events that are happening right now. You can get more information. And they're like, oh, and they can scan something like that. So that's something we're really working on. And like he said, the digital itineraries, so where you can go on and say, okay, I want to do a wine thing, and you can put together and you can maybe combine them. So that's something we've been working on for a year, but the itinerary thing it can be very complicated, but I think we've got a handle on it, and some of that digital part of the money that we're asking for is going to go to pushing things on our website linked to those advertisements. So some of it would go towards revamping the website to be more able to market to people through our digital advertising.
So when you also talk about digital advertising, have you guys investigated working with influencers that could maybe come to Keokuk and visit? I know we've done that in the past, for instance, with, what's his name now? My goodness. Yeah, the Iowa Gallivant. But I think that's
You mean like
something.
the You Betcha guy and the guy that's kind of sometimes up there,
Exactly.
something like that? That's a really good idea. I mean, that's something that we'd have to find out. I'm sure that they receive compensation in some way.
Oh,
I
of
mean,
course they do.
they're not going to be doing that for free. So I mean, that's a good idea to reach out to someone like the Iowa Gallivant or the You Betcha guy, or there's several other ones that are very popular.
Well, and I was going to even say though, I think the state of Iowa has been really working with the idea of influencers. And so how do we get influencers that can talk about the state of Iowa and that go around different things like that? But I think that's just another option that we can investigate.
I'll send some information to Kim.
Yeah, so, okay.
I wonder how working with like the local restaurants and stuff, if they would be willing, I mean, to even provide like the pictures and stuff. I know the food in here, like the restaurants, it's just their name. And like when I talked to you about like
Yeah.
the booklet in Waterloo, then I could see.
If we want to make that a 64 page.
No,
we
I
can
meant
do
you
it.
said you're gonna have a QR code, so if I could scan it, it would
Oh,
have
absolutely.
a picture, and then I would know that Lucky's has pizza or.
That's the really good thing about
Devil's
the
has tender-
digital one.
Yes.
We're not nearly so constrained by just logistics, we
Yep.
can put a slideshow of photos
Yeah.
in there, so it opens up exactly possibilities
Yeah.
like that.
And we could always come back next year and do a 24 one.
Yeah, there's really, I mean, there's nothing
You know,
stopping,
I mean,
perhaps.
we could do that because quite
I-
frankly, I think we're gonna run through the 40,000 copies of this one that we got. We're probably gonna run through that before the end of 24 anyway.
Well, I think what we're trying to say though is that a lot of people don't consume information in this way anymore. We're more of a point and click kind of culture. And so one of the things is that I was going to say is that we're not saying that there's not great, valid information in here and that it's extremely informative. Like that's great. What we're asking is that in what ways have we changed to what the culture is wanting and needing? And it sounds like with the digital advertising that you're talking about, Leah, that's exactly what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
We wanted to hear that. And so, I'm just saying is that like, this is great, informative, things like that. But, we're not trying to be critical and say that, it's
Yeah, it
just
takes,
vague.
it takes both.
Yeah.
It takes both ways because the Iowa State people a few years ago, I mean, everybody up there is extremely very technically inclined, I mean, and they brought them in, and about 6 years ago, they were going to completely quit making the Iowa Travel Guide in print. And they announced it at the state tourism conference, they were going to stop it. Well, that didn't work with the people. I mean, they found out that there's reasons behind the visitor's guide. It's psychological. There's reasons that they do that. And now they're making just as many as they did before. They're making 100,000 copies. And they're doing it twice a year rather than once to put fresh information out in front of people because they know people are looking for it that way. But it takes both. It takes a combination of both to make it work.
What I do, and I'm not quite the younger demographic, I'm a little older. When we travel, we see these, we stop, we pick them up. We're already headed somewhere else. We're already looking for something to eat. Pick this up, and it has several different locations around the area, and they go in my baggage. But the digital is where I find what I need at that time. I'm using a hybrid. And just here recently, I was cleaning out the writing desk and I come across the brochures. They're not up to date, but it reminds me of the places I've been. I got back online and started planning my next vacation off of these. So like you're saying, I think it's very important to have both. May not have all the information here, but this is a physical reminder of where you've been. It didn't just go out into space and now I'm bringing the digital in with it.
It also, if you pick one up in a hotel, where you're traveling somewhere, you pick someone up in a hotel, at least then you've thought about that area. But if you leave it to strictly digital, you might not go to Keokuk, Iowa. I mean, you might not go to Keokuk, but you pick up one of those magazines and you read about it, it takes both.
So I have a question. How do we use advertising to support tourism in our community? Because I think that when we don't allow businesses to purchase banner ads or anything else on the website or things like that, that's an opportunity that they're missing out on. So I was just curious, how do we currently support businesses in advertising to support tourism as well? Because most of these flip books that you see, you have a lot of different businesses that are advertising in their events or their, restaurant, things like that. I was just curious how you guys are working that angle as well.
I don't understand.
So when you have you have on your website, you have how many people visit your website on annual? Do you guys have your?
I don't have it right in front of me, no.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that if a business doesn't have an opportunity to advertise on that website, they're missing out on an opportunity for when people come to Keokuk for them to go there.
Yeah, and we could do that, with the new plan. We have not done that as of yet. And one thing about the visitor's guide, the way it is, with everybody in there, we don't charge anybody. So it's a freebie. So for everybody, because we didn't want to get tied into, well, our members are in there, but
No, and
three
I
places
understand
are
that. I'm
not.
just saying is that I think that there's some
Right.
revenue side of it
Yes,
that helps,
yeah,
but also,
yep.
to be honest, I really think that our businesses see that as an opportunity, especially if you have 40,000. And I'm not saying it's going to go in here. What I'm saying is that,
Yeah,
on
on
your
the website.
website, your digital side of it, that
Yep.
there's some opportunity to leverage the city funds that we're providing you to be able to support it even more. So.
My name is Mike Beard. I'm one of the past presidents of the Tourism Bureau. In regard to you, sir, was talking about the visitor's guide. The thing about it is most older people like me, we want to have something in our hands. We want to see a brochure. We want to see something written that we can look at and mentally comprehend it and come up with our own questions. If we go to a website, which I do a lot, yeah, I look at it, but there's not a lot of detail there that I'm looking for compared to the printed. And it can be changed real quick, which is great, but sometimes that's too quick. The other thing I want to point out is that Kirk and representatives from the Loop went out to Utah this year, and Kirk's been there before. And the reason we do that is because whether some people like it or not, our big draw is Nauvoo. They bring lots of people to Keokuk. When you see the pageant going on over there, our hotels are full. Our hotels are full most of the year, if you didn't realize it. Look at hotel motel tax. That's a pretty good healthy chunk, and that's just off the tax. That's not the room rates. That's not the gas stations. That's not the grocery stores, the restaurants, the shopping. So they bring in a lot of people. Our idea on the Loop was, okay, they come to Nauvoo and let's say they're going to go to the pageant for a couple of days. What are they going to do during the day? They can go to Fort Madison. They can come to Keokuk. They can go to the National Cemetery. They can go to Day Dance over in Hamilton. There's all kinds of different things that we as a Loop can offer visitors. I know most of you, if you go on vacation or a small trip, you don't go one place. You may go to, we'll say Des Moines and the state wrestling tournament that's going on now. When that's not going on, what are you doing? You're trying to find a place to eat, a place to sleep, that sort of stuff. That's what we're trying to do with all of this. As we used to say, we need butts in beds, and that's what puts dollars into our coffers here in Keokuk. And we appreciate what we have received from you guys over the years. We're just asking for a little bit more help. And we'd like to invite you to all of our events. I mean, basically, we have two major events, the Eagle Days and the Geode Fest. And like Kirk said earlier, the Geode Fest, it started out in Keokuk. We didn't really want to do it, but we started it. We had some people from Hamilton that really were into it. They took it over for a number of years. They had some health issues, so they sort of gave it back to us. And we tried it over in Hamilton for a couple of years, and it just keeps getting bigger. Well, if you can picture the church out there, was that First Christian? I couldn't think of the name of it. That entire parking lot full of people from out of state. Okay? Now picture the parking lot going into Trellex Morris. That's full of cars from out of state. The parking lot for the Masonic Lodge, that was full of cars. The parking lot at the electric company, Van Meter, that was full. We had over 1,000 people come in for that weekend. We had families come in from all over, 32 states, coming to Keokuk. And people say, why are you coming to Keokuk? For geodes. Geodes that anybody that grew up here, you just take a sledgehammer and beat the heck out of them. Or you'd throw them into the river. You would never pick them up and think it's worth anything. People are coming from all over the world, truthfully, to see Keokuk and their geodes. The eagles, we take eagles for granted. We know eagles are going to be here every winter. We just know it. When they don't show up, we all get excited. What's wrong? Years ago, we were on a family trip to Florida, went to Cape Canaveral, and we were on a bus tour. My daughter was about 5 or 6 at the time, and the tour guide was telling us, oh, we're coming up on an eagle's nest. Okay, my daughter, okay. Lady says, don't you want to see eagles? She says, we got them at home. Are you from Alaska? She said, no, I'm from Iowa. So we've got a lot of things that a lot of people will drive a lot of miles for. We have the Mississippi River. Some people have never seen the Mississippi River, but they'll come to Keokuk to see it. So again, thank you for what you've given us.
I think that these events are great. I'm just hoping for maybe like another week of events. Only because
You want to put it on?
I mean, I will gladly help. I
'Cause
would
we're
gladly
not-
help.
We're not the tourism bureau, if you look at most tourism bureaus across the state, they are promoters. They're not presenters. For example, the rodeo, that's presented by a whole different rodeo committee. And the tourism gets in on it, but they're not presenters, but they're promoters. And so, I mean, those two events take a lot of our time, but we accept that. We accept that because they run well and they're well attended. But most tourism bureaus are there to promote things. Okoboji, they help with that, a lot of things, but they're not the presenters. So just keep that in mind too. That's taken up some of our time.
So I have a question about Eagle Days, since we're talking about it, and the Geode Fest. On the proposed budget, you're asking for 10,000 for those two events. So is it safe to say that you're spending 5,000 on Eagle Days and 5,000 on Geode Fest?
No, that is, the $10,000 is to help Eagle Days.
Okay.
So the $10,000, we go in debt for, I mean, we have to spend $10,000 on Eagle Days. The Geode Fest makes about 15,000. So it makes money.
So can you just explain for everybody, because I'm confused on why Eagle Days isn't in Keokuk for Saturday and Sunday. So is there a reason why Eagle Days has now been moved to Montrose on Sunday?
Why Eagle Days moved to Montrose on Sunday?
Well, the biggest reason is that we couldn't have it in the mall anymore. Second of all, we're using a church on Saturday, Friday and Saturday. We have a youth or school program on Fridays, and we invite, I don't know, 500-600 kids in for a presentation on eagles and also on insects. So using a church on Sunday for Eagle Days is kind of out of the question. We went to Montrose to keep it in the area, again, to keep it in the loop. Lee County Conservation works with us on that. We have, this year we did it for the first time, was have a guided bus tour for River Road. It was very well attended for the first year. And one of the guys from, what's his name? I forget. What's his name? Clay.
Clay Steele.
Yeah,
From that
conservation. He did a tour, he did a step-on guide. And in fact, on Sunday, he ended up going out to the conservation facility, opening it up to people to see what they have there. Stuffed animals, things like that.
I'll say if it didn't go to Montrose, it was going to end Sunday. It was not going to be held on Sunday.
Right.
Because my board had voted to discontinue Sunday of Eagle Days. And not only Clay was in on it too. I mean, the conservation was in on it too. The attendance had dropped way down on Sunday. And so the board had voted not to do it. I reached out to Montrose on the Lake Cooper Loop, so it's still on the loop, and they're our neighbor, and reached out to them and asked if they would want to have it on Sunday. And that's how that happened.
So I guess I just don't understand, because we have a riverfront down there. There's a depot down there waiting to be used. It would be a perfect opportunity and a place to have Eagle Days
It's a
down there.
perfect location.
Yeah.
I agree. It's not big enough.
Well, I'm not talking about Eagles, but maybe doing like an event, like setting up your stuff down there and then working with the depot so that they can have people walk through and see what they've been working on, doing something together. But just getting people back on our riverfront is more of what I'm looking to do. And keeping it in Keokuk, keeping the exposure here, having people come up and down our main street, bus them down to our riverfront, have them use our whole main street. I feel like that's a missed opportunity that we're not taking advantage of by not using our riverfront.
How about now? All right. Okay, so the question that I'm hearing here is maybe if you could explain more on this regionalization approach. I mean, we've talked about the loop and various things going on. And yes, your Keokuk tourism. So how does the regional approach still play benefit to Keokuk? And maybe if you could explain, I mean, you've talked about your mission is heads and beds and hotel motel tax. Is that just Keokuk hotels, or is that a countywide deal? If you could just explain how the regional approach, is that still just as beneficial to Keokuk, or does Keokuk lose something when we branch outside of our city boundaries with these events?
When you go to St. Louis, how many towns do you pass through? It benefits Troy. Every time you stop in Troy for gas, it benefits Troy. The same is true when you go to Fort Madison, coming from Illinois, you pass through Keokuk. You see what's here, and you may stop for gas, you know, if you're waited to get out of Illinois or whatever. We have to work together. We have to work as a region. We don't have Adventureland sitting outside Keokuk's city limits. We have to take what we can get from every niche that we can touch And that means if the niche is rodeo, we have hotel rooms that we rent out on rodeo weekend. It's benefiting Keokuk, and but it's their event. I mean, regionalism in tourism is the name of the game. That's why Shai is going to be a part of a panel talking about collaboration and cities working together. The Quad Cities are the Quad Cities. They're not individual towns. They work as the Quad Cities. See, I mean, that's the whole idea behind tourism, is grabbing from every little niche that you can grab from. Not just Keokuk, but from everybody.
Well, my question, to kind of go along with what Chris has said, and I understand they used to put eagles in the movie theater. Obviously, that's not an option anymore. Do you fly eagles in the building every day?
No, we don't fly them anymore. The World Bird Sanctuary does not fly their birds anymore.
I guess my point is, when she mentioned the depot, the statement was, it's not big enough to put eagles in. Do you have eagles in the building every day, all 3 days?
No.
So why can't we,
Yeah, we have 2 days. 2 days we do.
That's my point. So the church is out on Sundays because they're having services. So instead of doing the eagles in the building on Sunday in Montrose, what about making Sunday be the depot day and the riverfront day? Do the eagles on Friday and Saturday. That way, then the riverfront would be big enough, because then obviously it's big enough venue. It's a huge park. We've got the depot down there. We've got all of that. You just wouldn't have the eagles that day. That way you could potentially keep all of it in Keokuk. I understand what you're saying about the community and Quad Cities, but you're not the Loop Tourism Bureau. You're not Lee County Tourism Bureau. You're Keokuk Tourism Bureau. So if
our name is Keokuk Area
I
Tourism
understand
Bureau.
that, but are you
That's
going to
the Tourism
Montrose
Bureau.
City Council asking for money? I guess that's where I'm at. If we're helping spend your money, if we're helping you with money, then it ought to be focused on Keokuk. If we're spending, and you said you have 2 major events, Eagle Days and Geode, but one of the major events, one of the days, isn't even focused in the town of Keokuk. So that's my reservation, I guess. I'm a big proponent. I'm a big advocate for tourism. I'm a big advocate for what we're doing and what you're doing, and I like what you're doing. But my concern is, if we're pushing one of the days off, then maybe instead of asking us for the full amount that you're asking, is ask us for a portion of it, ask Montrose for a small portion of it, since we're also helping Montrose's tourism by bringing a day to them. That's my only question. I understand the Loop. I understand Lake Cooper. I understand tourism doesn't, Nauvoo's a big thing. We've got to get them here. But it's not just about having them stay in the bed. It's not just about them staying a night. It's about them seeing what Keokuk has to offer. And we do. We've got a beautiful riverfront. We've got a newly revamped depot. And none of that's really being used until we get Rolling on the River or the Lake Cooper Street Fair. The tourism, I would think, would be, if we could push some of that, that would help us as well. Maybe we could forego going to Montrose then and keep it all in town. That's just an opinion. I obviously don't know near what you do when it comes to tourism. I don't have near the background, but I have to strongly agree with what Chris has said, that we've got a really good riverfront that we're not even using for this.
First of all, when I said there was not enough room, do you realize that we have more than just eagles out at the church? Okay. I mean, we have the insect zoo that comes down from Iowa State that takes up about 1/3 of our space out there. Then we have an eagle presentation that takes up about another I'll say quarter. And then we use their sanctuary for seminars on Saturday. We also have the Native Americans there that make a very nice presentation. Physically, the building at the depot would not be big enough to handle all of that for a second day, is what I meant. I would like to do something down there too, but the other thing is it's going to add to our cost, which Sunday doesn't cost us. We do normal advertising that we've always done for Eagle Days. So it's Sunday, I want to say it's free, but it's not an additional big cost to go to Montrose. But like Kirk said, if we can't come up with a big enough facility that can house it, Sunday is done. So it's going to be a one-day event to the public. And I don't want to see it to be that way. I'd like to see it, at least now we have, and we as Tourism Bureau people are there with flyers, et cetera, and answering questions. So it's not like it's just all going to Montrose. We're there making our presentations also. So.
I don't know that, I mean, I'm not a fan of the mall and using it just like everybody else isn't. And I understand the concept. I went to Eagle Days today and it works out great at the First Christian Church because there's plenty of room. But it's at the First Christian Church on the outside of town. And then you go to Montrose for the last day. And what happens is there's nothing from here down. Now I know what somebody's going to say to me is, well, we offer the bus to come down and take tours. This year it was fortunate because it was warm and the water above the dam was open, so the eagles were there. But the year before, last year, when you guys went to Montrose the first year, my husband and I went to Montrose to specifically see what was going on. There were no eagles to view. And down River Road, we counted 11. When we got back in town, we went down to the riverfront and there were 33 in one tree. So my problem isn't that you can't go to that church or this, that, or other. My problem is the sighting of the eagles in their natural habitat is being missed on our riverfront. And if the water is froze over, it's totally being missed up above. That's number one. We have another church on the riverfront, which is a Presbyterian church. I don't know if it's ever been looked into. But on that Sunday, when you don't want to use the church and we wouldn't want to use another church, why can't that be an eagle sighting day and make sure our riverfront is where we're looking at it, because that's where the eagles are when that water's froze over. I mean, you could use the Southside Boat Club, you could use the First Presbyterian Church, you could use the depot, and you could have viewing sessions on the Verity, you could have them on the walkout bridge where that's one of the best views when you look over the bridge to Hamilton. I mean, my only complaint, and I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong because I know you need the space. I understand that. My only complaint is Friday and Saturday, and again, making sure the school kids get in there is huge to me, making sure, and that's a great thing. But Friday and Saturday, you're at that end of town, and then you're at Montrose, and as far as I'm concerned, you've totally missed Keokuk.
Number one, we still have the viewing scopes down there. Viewing scopes are down at the Verity and at the South Side on Friday and Saturday. And we run the bus in Montrose this year because they didn't see any eagles last year, and we took them to see eagles this year. And we would have taken them to see them last year, but we didn't have it. I'm not. Again, my board had instructed me to cancel Sunday, period. So it was off the table. We would have had nothing, but I went to Montrose. So that's why we have Montrose. And and he, as he said, we have a presence in Montrose. We have a table, we have our brochures, we have things, we talk to people, and they see the bus this year that came out of Keokuk. It says Keokuk on the side. You know, the Eagles are down there 3 months. We're not losing. We're not, because quite frankly, Kathy, believe me or not, you can talk to Clay about how many people came down to the river on Sundays. I mean, it was down to nothing. I mean, about 10 or 12 people, you know. I mean, so again,
Again, I think you're missing my point. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to Montrose or you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the First Christian Church or you should. My point is that everything that's going on is on that end of town to Montrose, and they miss they miss our restaurants, they miss our people, they miss our stuff that we have in our town, because it starts out there and it goes on. And I will tell you, I have a friend that comes here every year and takes pictures of the Eagles every year. And she sells them all over the state of Illinois. And the first year you had it at Montrose, she couldn't come on Saturday, so she was coming on Sunday, and she stayed in Fort Madison, not Keokuk, because there was no reason for her to drive down here. But for the last however many years, she's been coming here. This year, she was so disappointed with what happened last year because she saw no Eagles at Montrose that she didn't bother coming. I'm not saying she's the only, that we do our life around here. I'm just saying it's all on that end of town and away from our town.
we could move it all to the depot.
I'm not asking you to move it to the depot.
But we need a space. We don't have enough space at First Christian Church for everything that we have going on. So if we didn't have it at the church and we moved everything close down here to the river, we'd be in the south side and the depot, and that's not enough room.
And I understand that. I'm just saying.
Well, then what's the answer?
I don't know, but the answer isn't not to use our riverfront. That's all I'm saying.
You can't see the river from the depot anyway on account of the cars.
We can request to move the cars though, can't we, as a city?
Well, you can request it.
You
that
can
don't mean
request to
have
move the
do
cars,
it.
Shelley, but I don't know if you remember Ragbri, or how long it takes to get the cars to move, even for one day. And then you get the railroad and the DOT involved with the safety issues of those tracks are wide open for kids and people. We had to police it for Ragbri so people didn't walk across them, but.
The guy that puts on the carnival for the 4th of July, he didn't want to go down the river on account of the track. He didn't want to go there.
I just think that this is the deal. I think you guys are doing a good job. I think regionalism is what you need to do, because guess what? Regionalism, you can get one night, one head in bed in Fort Madison one night, one head in bed in Keokuk. That'd be great. I believe in regionalism from community economic development perspective and tourism. I don't think it's our job to get in the weeds with I think about how to do things or this and that. But what I do want to say is that we support you. We do have, but what I'm saying though to you is that we do have some feedback, and you guys can take it as it is. But I think that it's important that you just see it as, we're not trying to be critical and say you're doing things wrong.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you. And what was I going to say? Oh, shoot. What we do in Keokuk on a daily basis is for Keokuk. Don't get me wrong. Whether it's First Friday, it's Friday night, and somebody comes in and they say, "What's going on in town?" and we say First Friday. If it's Eagle Days, we say that. Yes, we are an area tourism bureau only because we have to be an area to survive, and we help each other. But when it comes down to brass tacks, it's Keokuk. And you can ask Shy, you can ask Village of Van Buren, you can ask Henry County, you can ask Burlington. We all work for ourselves first, and then we look at the other way, out farther. But we all I'm working for this town, and I think I have a couple days.
I think we've gone enough into the conversation, but I just want to tell you guys, we do support you.
Thank
We
you.
just have a little feedback. And
Well,
so take it
sounds
for
like
what it
we need to
is.
go back to
And
our
we'll see you next year.
board and make a decision. Is there a way we can figure out that we can keep it in Keokuk all the time?
Tell me
Or
what it is. I mean,
Well, no, we need to discuss it. Okay? And then if we as a board feel that we cannot do a very good job of, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal, we'll come back and tell you. I mean, you brought up a lot of good points, and we have to take it back and figure out, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And then we could come back and say, okay, here's what we have decided, and here's why, and give you the feedback in regard to what we would like to do. Go from there.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I did
Good
have
job.
another question. Sorry, but it's about a different topic. There was a proposal given to us by Kirk, I believe, the first day that he came to spoke, and there was a $5,000 like geo proposal in there. It had Leah's name on it. Okay, so my question was, I guess your name was on there. So did you I was confused because was it just like your idea, or was the $5,000 being paid to you? What was the $5,000 buying?
With owning the local radio station, we do digital marketing for Keokuk, the digital area. So basically, something that we have is very similar to if you go go online and you can go to a national digital marketing company, and we can advertise on a national level through the radio station. So yes, it goes through the radio station, but it is done on a national marketing level. It's just something that we've been lucky to be able to have access to via our national radio traffic software. So no, it is not coming to me, but it is actually going into the local radio station's advertising.
Okay, so then we would be paying the $5,000 from the city to the radio station for that digital advertising. That's what
Yes,
you're saying?
it would go to, yes, I mean, that's what we would use that part of that budget is to the local radio station to do the digital advertising.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, let's move on to item number 2, gun range.
The original concept for the range was to provide a place for Keokuk officers to train and certify, since other ranges in the surrounding area would no longer provide time for our department. The intent was also to allow residents to use the range. 2 issues prevented public use at the time of construction: a legal opinion from our former city attorney and DOT access. Former city attorney Durando had issued an opinion that allowing the public to use the facility would place the city at risk. The city council decided to build the facility, then revisit the risk discussion once the facility was built. The entrance to the range is located where Highway 61 narrows from 4 lanes to 2. When the DOT discovered that the city had an access point at that location, they were hesitant to let us keep it. It was finally agreed that the access could stay as long as only city employees use the property, and all exiting traffic must turn right. To revisit the issue, staff has done a couple of things. Staff has submitted a request for the DOT to review the access point and determine if public access will be allowed, and I don't believe we received a response yet. As far as the placing the city at risk, if we've asked and requested for a premium quote for coverage from the insurance company, because if they're going to give us a premium quote, then the risk is, mitigated. We also want to look to see what that is going to cost. We have not received a quote back yet. I've submitted materials to them. I don't believe that they're going to come back and say that they won't provide coverage. It's just at what cost.
I don't recall the town that had the same design and everything else. It's been too many years ago, is when Aaron was here, and when we first started trying to get this gun range going, I worked with Chief Hinton on it, and we got this thing up and going. And the design was to the same spec as another town that has the same insurance that we had, and theirs wasn't bad. That was looked at the time. I can't tell you what it is now, post-COVID, but back then it wasn't a bad deal. A little history for everybody that's new on the council that doesn't know history on this. We had a mayor that did not feel that any citizen needed a gun. We fought it. This attorney that's being quoted here was brought in to give this opinion. I will go on the record as saying that this is what actually happened. I was here. We had everything donated except for the land, and we met so much resistance that all the donations, all the contractors backed out, and the city ended up having to pay for it. So this has been kind of an uphill battle. It is something that the citizens in this town greatly want. Our law enforcement wants it. We have sheriff's deputies that live in town that would like to use it too. If we can get these bugs worked out, get something figured out on it, I think it's going to be well received in the area. But that was just a little bit of history of where these documents come from. But I do know that that was all looked at when this was designed. It was being designed after another city that had the same insurance as us, and that's the way it was designed.
So some of the other issues that staff discussed that we will have to work through. Controlled access. Currently, the range is secured by a padlocked gate. Staff agrees that handing out keys through the padlock would create problems with lost or copied keys. Staff preferences for an electronic gate of some kind. Problems in getting the electronic gate. First of all, there's no electricity to the facility. Any electricity out there right now is from a generator. At the time of construction, the cost to run electricity was $25,000 and was removed from the project because of the cost. And as I said, a generator was installed to power lights for night shoots. Internet connection. If an electronic gate was to be installed, it would be beneficial to have an internet connection to relay who has access to the facility. It would also be needed if security cameras were installed. Cost. There would be a significant cost to install the gate, but we have not gotten any quotes or written up any specs. That's why we're having the discussion tonight, because if we want us to proceed forward, we will certainly get that. There is some possible solutions. We could staff the facility during public hours. Look at the possibility of having volunteers staff the facility, which was one of the proposals when it was built. This would limit hours of operation to when the volunteers could be there. The city could also hire part-time staff for the facility. That is not necessarily ideal at the time when we're dealing with a shortage in the budget. One idea that came up is that could we use solar power for the access gate? This would be less expensive than running electricity. You might not be able to have internet, but if you had a card reader that could store use, that could then be downloaded in some way, we could do that. We would have to look to see if the solar would be sufficient enough to power internet or cameras. There would be some increased maintenance with the range. The range has concrete paths for shooting lanes. In between the lanes is dirt and grass, though not much grass, unfortunately, because we're having a tough time getting it to grow out there. With increased traffic, those areas could require additional maintenance. We would need to police brass on a regular basis and provide a receptacle. A trash can and regular pickup will need to be done. We probably should have a porta potty brought out to the site. Another issue is we don't have standing targets. There are ground receptacles that hold a 1x2 by 8 foot board that the cardboard is stapled to, and then your target is stapled to the cardboard. So this is, we have to look at it. Is this something we'd want to provide for the public? Discussion would be that it would be hard for the cardboard, but the 1x2s could be something where we could have stacked out there and people could use those, they would have to have regular replacement because I'm sure though that at times there's going to be shots through them and they would deteriorate. The other issue is fees. It's always been discussed that members of the public who want to use the range would need to buy a pass similar to like they do at the Aquatic Center. Staff would suggest a season pass priced at $75 to $100. There's also the question of other law enforcement agencies using the range, and should we charge a fee for that use? So we're open for discussion and comments.
I did have the opportunity to go out to the range. Chief took me out there so I could see it firsthand. And first off, I want to say it looks like a very nice facility, very well thought out with the shooting lanes and with having the barriers up for safety reasons. For the gate, when I was looking at that area, it did lend itself to me to believe that solar would be a viable way to power the gate. I've been up to Tri-State Gun Club in Montrose a handful of times lately, and there you just have a key fob on your keychain, and it scans it, it opens up the gate, and it lets you go in there, and that's how you have access. I don't think additional staff or anybody being out there on the regular would be an appropriate use of funds for this. As for the actual targets out there, so the way that it's set up is there are PVC pipes all at the ends of the ranges, and there you just slide the 1x2 in and staple it up, like the Cole was saying. I don't feel like that's anything that the city would need to provide. I think that when people would get the opportunity and sign up and pay a fee to be able to go out there to shoot, they would know I have to bring my holder for my cardboard and I have to bring my cardboard. And that's not too different than other gun clubs as well. Some do have supports already in place that you can put your cardboard. But I think that requirement or that expense being on the user instead of the city, I don't think that's anything that would deter someone who wanted to have a close place to be able to go out and shoot. For the proposed fees of 75 to 100, I feel like that's in the ballpark. Up in Montrose, it's $60 for the year, just for comparison information for the council. So I would like to see us work towards figuring out a way to make this open for our public. But also, like was stated, we do have the DOT and the insurance that we have to work through first.
I'm in favor of opening it as well. I do think that Montrose allows other law enforcement in the county to use theirs for free.
I think it's a reduced rate. No, I think they changed that. So, Clint's over here. I see. I used to be, I'm a member of Tri-State now, and I used to be a long time ago when the Keokuk Police Department using the range became an issue. And what I understood from the members at that time at the meeting, I was going to every monthly meeting. Part of it was miscommunication, and I think part of it was abuse. What I understood was a lot of the police department in Keokuk and county as well were told they could use it, but the city of Keokuk Police Department and the sheriff's office never actually contacted Tri-State Gun Club and say, hey, is it all right if our guys come use that? And so my understanding, what part of the problem is why now Keokuk has kind of been run out of Tri-State is because guys would show up to use the pistol range, which they need to use a pistol range, and paying members of the gun club were told you can't use it right now because we're training on it. And it was totally just a miscommunication. If they had worked with Tri-State, I'm sure they could have worked it out. That being said, if we have an option to put one in our own town, which we already obviously do, and I didn't even know that was there, I would be 100% in favor of that. Why pay the fuel to drive all the way out to Tri-State when we've got one right here? And as far as letting other law enforcement agencies use that, sure. If you wanted to charge an extremely minimal nominal fee for a year for the whole county, say, hey, okay, if you want to come, county officers come use it, the county sheriff's department pays us $100 for the year, and we give all their officers access to the thing, if we wanted to charge them. As far as charging the members, that would help pay for a lot of the expenses if because there are a lot of members in Keokuk that either have to go to Burlington Flint River, or they have to go to Tri-State, or they can go to Carthage. But you're traveling 20 to 30 minutes sometimes to get to a gun range. So if we have the access, I'm in 100% agreement with that. Have we looked what it would cost to get electricity out there? Do you have a number?
I'm sorry, the last estimate that we had when we built the facility was $25,000.
So that's not necessarily off the table in the future. Because long-term, we potentially would put actual bathrooms out there, maybe some sort of shelter house where we could store, because you could potentially use this also as a moneymaker, and once or twice a year do an actual fundraiser out there. You know, Tri-State Gun Club, all of the different schools use Tri-State for their shooting.
Exactly.
You know, we could definitely do that here. There'd be no reason why we couldn't do that. And actually, but if we're going to do that, we obviously would have to have a little more facilities out there to be able to host that. So that's not something we can do this year, next year.
If the gun club was such a moneymaker, there'd already be one there.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be a money maker.
And one of the reasons why that was moved was because our police were going to Montrose to qualify. And correct me if I'm wrong, but then that kind of stopped and you had to go to the prison.
It was actually the other way around. We were going up to the prison in Fort Madison, and then they stopped allowing everybody to qualify up there at one point. I think they let Fort Madison qualify up there again now. I'm not positive on that though. Then we went to Tri-State Gun Club. At one point there was I think there was a disagreement around the carry permits between some people that made some decisions, which led to us not being allowed to be out there. And then at some point we gained access again, and then we lost access again. I wasn't privy to that information that you shared, so I don't know the accuracy of it. But yes, it's my understanding that we identified a need as a city because we have to qualify every year. And at one point our qualifications had lapsed, waiting for the gun range to open up. So our city identified that need, made a plan, put the gun range out there. And then my understanding of it, I wasn't in a position, I didn't assist in developing this at all. My understanding was then the thought process came, well, maybe we open it up to the public, charge a fee, recoup some of these costs. And that's my understanding of how that all came about.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of, do you think that it would interfere with anything as long as there were dates maybe set aside for KPD to do their?
KPD should have priority access for sure. And I'm not talking individual officer on their off time saying, no, I'm out there from, but if we're doing a department training, we should definitely have priority access. That was the reason that the gun range was built. Outside of that, there's a lot of little things that have to be hammered out. The concrete skirt on the entrance, the electricity issue, or a viable solar option, which on that lane, it does have trees on both sides, so I don't know how much that affects the sunlight there. We do store some equipment out there in a shed, so we worry about some of that stuff. But Mr. O'Donnell, you said we would have to police brass. Is that something a city worker is going to be tasked with? Because I feel like that should fall on whoever's out there shooting should police their own brass.
Correct. You're correct. But the problem is not everybody polices their brass.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next point, is that there should be some mechanism for suspension or removal of a membership if they're not taking care of the property. Mr. Greenwald was out there. We keep it very nice. There's hardly any brass. I'm sure there's a stray one here or there. We also have to think about our parks department that does the mowing out there. It would have to be shut down to allow them to go out there and mow so they could do it safely. I mean, there's a lot of small things that would have to be hammered out. My biggest concern is that bringing this up to the DOT again is that they say, we never gave you access. Do we have that documented somewhere?
There isn't a document that says so, but they told us that they weren't going to allow it. So that's why we're going back to check again.
That's my concern, is
Right.
that now they,
I understand, but it was on their radar. My understanding is that one of the property owners out there wanted access off of 61. The DOT said, no, you can't have it because of the same reasons. They said, well, the city's got one right there. And so that's when they came to us and said, well, you can't have that access. We said, well, we've been using it for years. And they said, well, okay, you can keep the access, but for city employees only.
right.
But I did speak with the district engineer on the phone and then sent an email to him, which, as in most cases, gets passed down the chain when you deal with the DOT. The response that I initially got back was, you need to submit a work and right-of-way request. Obviously, you have to submit a sketch of what you want to do with that, which we already knew we were going to have to do. I then replied with an email on if they could give me design specifications on what we would, on specifically what we have to do to make this a public entrance, because it would become not a private entrance anymore, but a public entrance. And that's what I have yet to hear back from the DOT. No, not right now. No, because it's like,
Chief Baum is saying is, are they going to come back and say, you're not using it at all?
No,
No.
I don't believe that would happen.
when I spoke to him on the phone, he had made no mention of that.
Okay. That's the concern, is that they say, actually, we don't want you to use this at all.
Right.
Okay.
And that's out there now, so
Yeah.
if
So it
that
will be
decision was made,
available.
then that's something that's gonna be made, but.
So the way the process works, if I keep waiting, I mean, I'll call them back again to try to get a specific answer, but we can submit a work and right-of-way permit with the DOT specified driveway, but then they could say, no, we're not gonna let you put this driveway in.
I just want, at a minimum, we want to make sure KPD is able
Well,
to use
and they're
it.
not gonna shut down the existing. This is if we would change it.
Okay.
I do want to clarify that I am a proponent of gun safety, and the best way to be safe with your guns is to get on a safe range and be familiar with your weapon. So I don't want it to come off any other way other than that. I don't want my department to lose access to that.
Quail Forever has talked to me within the last year or two, and they also go up to Montrose and they do hunter safety courses, which everybody that hunts now has to have a hunter safety course, adult, child, whatever. And they said that they would definitely be interested in doing the hunter safety course right here in town. They do a lot for the youth. They do a lot for the wildlife in the area, Lee County, statewide. And I'm sure there's other agencies, Turkey Forever, Turkey Federation, and all the rest of them will probably follow suit on that. So it's definitely a good deal if we can get all the bugs worked out of it.
As a question with the access there, how much of that land is under the city's property there? Is there the possibility of moving the access point off of South 7th, a few hundred feet closer to town and just having more of a frontage road?
So the city's property, and I don't know. So before you get to the bypass, that property is owned by Larry Hoppy. So you would have to get an agreement or an easement from either, and I think Roquette owns the property next to that. So you'd have to get an easement, because then there is a drive coming off of the bypass to get to those properties, but you'd have to get an easement from both those entities to go out and around and then down to the gun range to stay off of 136.
This is one of the fobs that will give you access to the Montrose Tri-State Gun Club. And it's called Carry Systems, Keri. And you flash it out your door. There is a hydraulic vertical gate that could easily be set up to be solar powered. There is a little house off to the side that contains a computer, which could be powered by solar power. And the information from this fob will tell you who entered the property, when they entered. So it would require a minimally cheap computer. It wouldn't have to be a sophisticated system. Some software provided with the fob. All of it could be solar powered, and you would be able, if you also included a surveillance camera, and we've all seen cameras on houses that are solar powered that could record license plates of vehicles that are entering, as well as the information contained on the computer software. And any damages that might be incurred could probably be narrowed down by the time and date stamps, along with the information. I would be very much in favor of public access to this facility. I have to admit that when the gun range came into being, and it was stated then that it would be available to the public, I gave one of my skeptical eye rolls because I didn't think that it would ever come to fruition. I guess that's just my doubting Thomas nature, but if we can work it out, I think it would be widely received. Most of your gun owners are responsible people that have had education. I taught hunter education for 10 years in Missouri. So, and I feel I'm responsible, and I think most of the sincere gun owners are responsible. My question, and I've not heard anything about it so far, is this, other than the gate, fenced off in any way?
I don't believe so, but it's surrounded by a lot of woodland that would be difficult to access. Plus, there's private property on other sides that is secure.
Right. But if you just now have a gate with a lock on it to permit drive-through, that doesn't mean that it might not be accessed otherwise. Okay.
Well, even the gate there at Tri-State, I'm a member at Tri-State, I've been a member, and you can walk onto that one if you want to walk, but you're going to park your vehicle way back here by the gate. I mean, to think, unless we were to do something like what Flint River's got, which is actually completely indoor facility, it's going to be near impossible to completely isolate it to where you're going to make it impossible for somebody to get there. You know, anybody that's ever done anything with law enforcement knows the lock on your door really keeps the honest people out. You know, if the criminal wants in, he's going to find a way in. No matter what we do to this place, if somebody wants to get in there bad enough, they'll find a way to get in. The gate the Tri-State has is really nothing but an arm, just like a parking garage, and you have to you have to wave your fob to get in, you got to wave your fob to open it to get out. And it does, it clocks that. But in the same sense, when they have an event out there, they go out there and they lift that thing up and they hold it up so anybody can drive in and out. So it's, and I've never been there, so I don't know what it's like. I mean, I know what the gate is like for Tri-State. I don't know much about this one, but basically the gate or the lock or whatever you're doing is going to keep vehicle traffic from going.
Right.
If they wanted to park, it sounds like if they parked next to the gate and then walked in, somebody'd go by and say, "Hey, what's this guy doing here?" Pretty quickly, Lecom's going to get a phone call, and then KPD's going to get a phone call or a radio call, and they're going to go check it out and find out why this guy's parked there. So there again, it's going to be more of an honor system. I would be very much in favor of long-term getting electricity out there, because I'd like to see lights. I'd like to see cameras. I'm a big security guy. I do security consultant on the side along with my regular job. So for me, the more security we got, the more lights we got, the more control we have access, that's going to keep it more secure than trying to put a fence around it. As long as we can't, if they can't drive in it, that'll keep majority of them out. And then when we start lighting it up, we've got cameras, we've got the key fob that registers who's going in and out. That would keep most people out that aren't supposed to be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess my suggestion here is we probably need a little bit more looking into this and some more information. And as far as access and all that, I think somebody needs to take that over. And then the next time we talk about it, there's a whole list of stuff here that's needed. And I'd like to see what the total cost is, because it's hard to present to the public if we don't have a total cost. So we need to make another attempt at this at another workshop. But if somebody wants to step forward and find people to do what the total cost is and everything, and then we can view it at talk about it at another session.
Staff will look into the options presented and see what's available out there and what can be done.
Well, I would say, first things first, we need to make sure we can get access. 'Cause I
Yes.
don't want you to spend a whole bunch of time chasing down bids or anything like that without knowing that we have access or not. I mean,
Right.
I know we're all very busy, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree, but what it is we might as well get the groundwork because it takes the DOT months to make a decision, so.
Okay. All right. So we're going on to number 3, smoking policy for all parks.
So the park board took a vote after receiving a presentation on creating a policy or ordinance for tobacco-free, nicotine-free parks and trails for the city of Keokuk. The park board decided that an ordinance would be hard to enforce, so they wanted to bring forth a policy. You have that in front of you. It looks like, anyway, it looks like that. So this is the policy. Policy, use of tobacco. No person at any time shall use tobacco of any kind while present on any city park property. Tobacco includes any product made or derived from tobacco that is intended for human use, including any component, part, or accessory of a tobacco product. This includes but is not limited to cigarettes, electronic smoking devices, cigarette tobacco, roll your own tobacco, smokeless tobacco, and dissolvable tobacco. Electronic smoking devices means any device that can be used to deliver an aerosol solution that may or may not contain nicotine to the person inhaling from the device, including but not limited to e-cigarettes, e-cigar, e-pipe, vape pen, e-hookah, or other simulated smoking devices. Nicotine products approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration for tobacco cessation shall be allowed within city parks. So then it lists all of our parks and trails. At the bottom, you see, to ensure that the park has strong tobacco-free nicotine policy and to qualify for outdoor signage, the policy must explicitly include the following. Policy must include 100% tobacco-free, nicotine-free grounds at all times. Policy must be extended to all types of tobacco, nicotine, vape, or ESD products. Not only cigarettes, include all tobacco, ESDs, and nicotine products not approved by the FDA for cessation. There should not be any designated smoking or tobacco use areas. So they have forwarded this with a recommendation of 7-2 to establish the tobacco-free nicotine policy for parks and trails.
I support the park board, but I just don't get behind this policy, I guess. I think that it's a lot more red tape to be policing outdoor areas.
I would
So
not agree with this at all.
Policy, I guess, since it would be a policy, it's not enforceable. Like any of Chief Baum's guys, you could tell them to,
My idea, I thought they wanted it to become an ordinance.
no, they want a policy. They do not want an ordinance.
I think if it's city policy, you can ask them to leave.
Right, but you
And then
can't give them a ticket, I guess is the.
Then it would progress to a trespass
Yeah,
sort of
that's-
situation, but just reading, what is the council's idea of how this is going to be enforced? Is that the steps you're wanting to take?
We have no ideas. This started at the park board. This is
Because-
the first time we're even looking at
Okay.
this.
Because this will, if we do put this signage up with no intent of enforcing it, we're still gonna get called over to the park occasionally because somebody's gonna see the signs, they're gonna see people smoking and they're gonna call us. And then you're kind of putting us in I guess you guys need to decide what we're gonna do with it.
I would not be in favor of this. And especially, this isn't even, this says no tobacco, which means, and I don't chew and I don't drink and I don't smoke. But for me, telling a guy that's going to drive out there and sit in the park bench and watch the boats go by in the river all by himself, middle of the day, you can't go out there and smoke when there's nobody else around. That's a little bit more big brother than I want to be. And you know what's going to happen as soon as you put that out there. KPD is going to get calls every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes. Hey, so-and-so's out here smoking. You need to send a officer out here and tell them to stop. And I think we're going to really end up with a whole lot of red tape and a whole lot of nonsense. And if we start this, okay, you can't have smoking in the park. You can't have tobacco in the park. What's next? No dogs in the park? Because, well, I don't want to have to walk across with that dog. That guy didn't pick him up. I'm afraid if we go down this road, we're gonna isolate and tell people you can't. We already can't smoke in the pavilion. You can't smoke under any roofed structure in any public park. That's already there. They can't smoke in the pavilions. They can't smoke in the shelter houses.
We don't
But
have
to
any
tell them they
signage for
can't
that, though.
smoke- What's that?
We don't have any signage for that, though.
Well, but I'm saying that's state law.
But I'm saying, though, is that there's no signage up, and I don't think that's state law either.
My understanding is
It
it's
is.
state law.
That's
For-
a state, that is a
That's what I mean.
state
That's the
ordinance.
state
So
law.
like with a shelter park, for
In the
instance,
in
that
the
has
Any, under roof.
Anything under roof.
Okay.
And that's the thing. So that's not even something we have to be concerned about. The only place where the smoke is really going to affect a non-smoker is going to be inside an enclosed area.
Well,
If you're
I've
in a
chosen to
park-
leave the park because my child was playing at the park and there was somebody legitimately on the playground smoking a cigarette. And I was like, I don't need my child to be around this right now.
Well,
on the
and
playground.
but that's your privilege.
So
It
why,
really is.
but what I'm saying though is that like you have young people walking around. You can't smoke on school grounds,
You can't.
and it's
smoke on school grounds,
outside.
For sure.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is that just as somebody who has several times chose to leave the park because people are smoking on the playground, I don't think it would harm us to say within 25 feet of the playground,
Well, then,
smoking.
but that would be, for me, that'd be a better policy to try to hold than is, let's put some designated non-smoking, maybe around a certain playground or something versus the whole park. Because there's a lot of park in Keokuk. There's a lot of different parks in Keokuk. And like I said, I have lung disease. So if I get in around a lot of smoke, yeah, it affects me too. I just choose not to get around places that it's going to affect me. But I choose to go those places. Now, granted, if And we've all been there where the lady's got 4 kids and she's more concerned about what's on her phone than her kids in the playground and doing whatever. But if we was, like I said, my concern is we're going to regulate it so much because as soon as this passes, then you're going to have the guy that's upset because, well, this guy keeps bringing his dog and I'm trying to have my kids and this dog's pooping in the kids' playground. So now we're going to run the dogs out of the park and then we're going to run. And then but what's the point of going to the park if you can't enjoy yourself? And a lot of people, like I said, I don't smoke. I don't get the drive to smoke. But a lot of people, for them, that's an enjoyment to go walk in the park, to go sit on a park bench somewhere and just enjoy a cigarette and watch the river, watch the eagles we talked about. And if we're going to tell them you can't do that, then what's going to happen is a lot of those are going to go somewhere else where they can.
So I have just one question, real quick question. Underneath the heading of here, it says Kim Reynolds, Governor, and then Adam Gregg, Lieutenant Governor. Is this going to be a situation when we start wanting money for our parks that if we don't pass this policy, they'll say, well,
No,
do you have any idea if that's going to happen?
no, what this is this is just Department of Public Health letterhead.
Yeah, okay.
That's all it is. It's not, this is not a directive coming from the governor's office or anything else. This is
Okay.
just a program that, where they'll provide free signs if we do the tobacco, 100% tobacco-free parks.
And I'm just asking because it was on there. I guess,
Well,
I
and
just
my
wanted to make
understanding-
sure.
My understanding is this is Christine Kempker came to them and asked them to make the parks non-smoking.
Yes, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that it would not interfere with if we needed to do any grants or anything for our parks.
So Christine's not here tonight. She was unable to come. She's having some medical issues. So about 2 hours before this whole meeting started, she asked that I come as the local representative of this whole thing. So to answer what you were saying about, it should be allowed in the parks. I can't advocate one way or the other because of my job, but I will tell you that the smoke has to go somewhere, and that smoke travels. So that's why they're asking for an entire park be smoke-free, because that smoke does go into the air and it does travel. I do know that at a previous city council meeting, someone spoke about how it infringes on personal rights as well. I know that's a common argument. Smoke-free parks doesn't infringe on personal rights because we're not asking people to not smoke. We're just saying don't smoke here. So that's kind of where that line of thinking goes. I will also encourage you guys to look at what other cities are doing also. There are over 700 parks now in the state of Iowa that are completely smoke free. So look at how that's working for them and what they're doing. A lot of times just putting up a sign deters people enough that it doesn't have to be patrolled or enforced. Also, you will have citizens, when that sign is there, more apt to speak up about it because it gives them reassurance that the rule is there in writing. So most often, you're not going to have to patrol it or enforce it because the sign's there. I will also tell you that adults have a lot of impact on children. And by adults smoking at a park, it's another way of normalizing smoking. And I have some data that is from here with children. So already in 2021, 7% of our 6th graders have already smoked. Whether it's an e-cigarette most often, but also cigarettes are included in that too. 25% of our 8th graders have smoked, and 31% of our 11th graders. They also have a very low perception of harm because it happens all around them every day. So just things to keep in mind. And I'm sorry Chris wasn't here, but if you have questions, I will try my best to answer them.
I appreciate that. Iowa Code 142D3 states, and it, of course, is always open to interpretation. We could ask Lynch Dallas, but it does say outdoor. I mean, it would include even like the pavilion, shelters. So the state code already covers the covered areas. I agree with what you're saying about a sign, but we will have people call the police department. And when the police come and they say, I actually can't arrest you, what do we do then?
Some cities I know have imposed a $50 fine. I'm not sure how that works entirely,
It would
but
have
I
to be like
do
an
know.
ordinance, like a municipal infraction.
Right.
But then we can't collect on the municipal infractions we already have.
Gotcha.
No offense to you.
Mm.
You brought up the ages of the smoking and stuff. Have you looked at the ages on drinking too? Because drinking's illegal up to 21 too. So I think you're going to find a lot of,
Of course I have.
I think they're going to do it no matter what. I mean, and I agree with you on, they do see us and they do watch us. But I also find it ironic that we're trying to stop all tobacco, yet the two states next to us have legalized marijuana.
Right.
But let's get rid of tobacco. I see Iowa probably following suit. So it just, I don't know, it's like a cat playing with a ball of string. I don't know which way to run with this, other than I don't really feel that we ought to regulate our citizens anymore. I think if they want us to stop, I think the governor ought to implement a no smoking in the state of Iowa.
My other concern is, what do we do about, I think we've just recently allowed alcohol at the pavilion. So you can drink, but you can't smoke while your kid's on the slide.
Well, and so I read a study today about this, the Bayer study or something like that. I don't remember all of it, but he said they brought up 2 points of why they wanted to stop it. Neither one of them were really that valid points, and one of them was the secondhand smoke. He said outdoors, and I don't know a lot of his credentials. And like I said, it was only one study I read. He said, but in reality, that doesn't really hold water. He said, what it really boils down to, and you actually kind of hit on it, is what really the bottom line is they want to stop people from smoking. And so if we can curtail that, I mean, you already said that. You don't want kids to see this, so they'll start to smoke. And that's really when all of these towns and all these people that have passed this and are real big promoters for this, their main drive is they want people to stop smoking. And I understand that. Like, obviously, there are issues with smoking. Like I said, I don't smoke, and I have lung disease, and I've never smoked. But that's what it really is about. It's not about, oh, well, we're worried about the smoke, we're worried about this. It's they really just want people to stop. And like I agree with what he said. We want to stop all tobacco. But how far away from saying, oh, well, but marijuana is okay, you know?
Well, I would
And-
argue that marijuana is not
Well, I don't
okay
agree with that either.
also.
Okay.
And the one,
And if I can point out that you
and
can fill these
so-
vape devices with marijuana and not know that that's what's
and
in
this
there
this
too,
Miss
so.
Kempker is
So,
from Mount Pleasant, and they don't even have this ordinance or policy in Mount Pleasant.
so, I think that what we need to decide here is, do we want to adapt this policy or not? I think we're getting like into marijuana, we're getting into drinking and everything, and we just need to decide at this point whether we want to have a smoking policy for the whole park. Now, Karen has come to speak, and she is representing the Standing Bear Tribe, right? So she's been sitting here all night, so we're happy to hear from you, Karen.
It was I'm honored to be able to observe all this today. I haven't been to a council meeting for a long time. But I heard about this issue about to be presented, and I just wanted to remind you of one little thing here, a big thing to me. the two pictures behind you on the wall begin what I'm going to say. You have Chief Keokuk here and one of his wives. And I work with the Native American people. I have most of my life. And they have pipe carriers. And these are spiritual people, probably akin to a pastor or a priest or whatever. And part of their religion is smoking the pipe. And for many years, we have brought Indian people, Native American people from all over the country here to Keokuk. And we meet at the Chief Keokuk statue. And the honored person there will smoke the pipe and pass it around to those who are there. If you don't smoke it or inhale it, you touch it to your chest. And it's considered a spiritual act. And some people might say religious. And I came here to make sure that you all knew that we do this. We've been doing it for many years. And I don't know how many years before that when we didn't live here as Americans. So that's considered a very sacred spot. And I just wanted to let you know that. And thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thanks, Karen.
All right.
Thanks for sitting through all this. So anyway, I think we just need to make a decision whether we want to do this or not do this or revisit, or what do we want to do, guys?
I just don't know how we can say yes or no if we don't know how we're going to enforce it. What's the consequence?
I personally am not in favor of this.
I just can't say yes or no if I don't know, what do we do when the officer gets there? They can't do anything. It's going to escalate. I'm going to remove you. Like Chief Baum says, this ends up being a trespass or, interference. It's going to be something larger. What do we do?
So what I'm hearing is on this end, we don't want it. I'm hearing down here that there are some people that would like to see it. So can we take a vote? Can we do that?
Well, we
I
can
didn't say
garner
that.
consensus.
We can take a consensus.
I didn't say that, please.
I know.
What I'm saying is that there are many different perspectives. We have 9,900 people that live in our community. And I think that we need to think about all of them, including children that are at playgrounds, and that there's a legitimate conversation about a sign that says, please do not smoke.
And I know what you're talking about, Shelley, because I take my kids to that same spot in Rand Park, and there's parents that are watching their kids climb up on all that equipment, and they're smoking right there next to them, on the rubber padding, and my kids are running around there too. So
And just
maybe there
because-
just needs to be a conversation about not smoking on that rubber, like the flooring part.
Sorry, I meant
But-
to add in the code, it does say playgrounds, but it's under school, which again could be interpreted that they couldn't smoke by Iowa code on the playground.
And the thing is on a sign, you don't have to put, like you can say, please don't litter. That doesn't mean any, what I'm saying is that if you just put a sign that says, please don't smoke, and the police get called about it, the police can only simply say, and they can answer and they can say, that is just a sign that says, please don't smoke, is what I'm saying.
What
It's not a thing that the police have to answer because there's a sign that says, please don't smoke. Well, yeah, and that's fine. But I'm just saying is that it's about the aspect that it's just a please don't smoke sign. It's not a enforceable anything, it's just saying, hey, we'd really like you not to smoke here. That's what I think about it, personally.
I could see something like that, like he's talking about on the rubber mats, putting it up and said, please don't smoke in this area.
Yeah, that area, but I'm not in favor.
Not the whole park, not up around the pond, not down, You have a group of children there and a sign that says, please don't smoke in this
Okay.
area.
That's all I'm saying is that I'm not saying
I-
that
I-
it's
I could-
enforceable. I'm just saying that,
I could get behind that, bro.
because
there are-
courtesy, please don't smoke.
Okay, so can somebody, Brian, can you speak to the parks? Well,
I will at our next park
Bob's
board
sitting
meeting.
over there. Find us how much it would cost us to put some signs up that say, please don't smoke. And Is everybody in agreement that we're not going to do the policy, but we are going to see how much it would cost to put up some signs that say, please don't smoke in certain areas in our parks? Is that agreement?
Is it just gonna be by the playground? Or what are we talking about?
Well, I think that the intention is around the playground. Now, what you have to understand is there are multiple playgrounds in town, so we would have to look at,
The cost.
you know,
Well, I
where
thought
we
they
would
said they
need,
were gonna
where
place
we
the
would need
signs
to
here.
put these. And the thing with Rand Park, it's concentrated. In other parks are kind of spread out. So we would have to look to see where we'd want to put them and how many.
Oh, okay. You have to
We
adopt.
have to adopt the policy to get the signs paid for.
The Best You Coalition, she said they may be able to help with funding of those signs.
She said, okay, all right. So is that okay? We're done with that? All right. Number 4, Rand Park gate closures.
Just to keep this quick, from my understanding, you have adopted, there's an ordinance for the parks from November 1st to March 1st, and that's going to continue. We have had some issues because the weather has been so unseasonably nice, people cutting our locks at Ram Park and people driving around the barricades to drive into Ram Park. I guess the main thing here, after talking with Bob, is we do need to put some signs up that say our parks are closed, or the park is closed to vehicular traffic from November 1st to March 1st. It's kind of I don't know, and I know you guys got called last weekend because of people doing this, and I don't know what enforcement you have on that, other
Yeah, I
than.
mean, that's the kind of thing, unless there's a witness. or something.
Bob, refresh my memory. The reason we started closing the park, first of all, was City of Christmas, but also because of the plowing on the pavers?
Snow-
Or was it
snow
the
removal on
traffic
the
on the
pavers.
pavers?
No remover on the pavers.
It was both because the vehicles are driving on the pavers with the snow, compacting it down, and then when the plow tries to clean it up, it's bringing up the rocks and everything with
Right.
it out of the pavers.
Well, I have no problem with just don't plow it.
Well, people are
Well-
still walking around in there. You have foot traffic.
And also a lot of our
Yes and no.
normal winters, it takes a lot longer to get the City of Christmas torn down and hauled out of
Yes,
there.
right.
I mean,
I
we're
think-
not used to having 60-degree weather on, February 14th. People are not even
And
thinking about going.
It's
swinging in
looking
the
like
park.
50 degrees for next 3 months. So.
And we made a decision to close them. And I understand some people want to go to the park, but they can go down to the riverfront. There's other parks they can
Well,
go to.
it's not,
We-
and the park is not closed to people. You can walk. in
Yeah,
this-
but you
park
can't
on the
drive
road.
in it. And if you're an elderly couple that wants to look at the river, that's the people that are calling me. But we made a decision not to do it, and I just think we need to stay with what we got.
We can't predict the weather. We don't know what years
That's right.
warm and what's not cold, so we have to stay consistent. And I believe it was Joe from the City of Christmas said he needed more time to get it cleaned up. So
Yep.
we needed to give him the extra time. So it made sense to do it.
Signage might be though on those yellow signs, like where the beginning of City Christmas is, for instance, that might be an appropriate place to hang a sign.
Well,
for
you'd
some-
put signs up at every one of our gate locations.
Yes, or maybe that it hangs on the gate location and just states kindly.
Because I
that
think
no-
that was one of the, when Bob was asking people to leave the park, that was one of the responses he's got. Well, I don't see a sign saying that the park is closed.
No.
But you had to cut the lock to drive in there.
Okay,
then
so
that
Brian,
would
you're going to
probably-
be ordering a lot of signs. Okay,
I do agree that it said kindly and that like the park is open, just not to vehicles.
yep. Okay, number 5, discuss property tax levy.
I wanted Cole to go through and explain because I feel like I know, having been a city, like having been trained in planning and things like that, that I understand city levies a little bit. And I also have reached out to other people to learn a little bit more, but I just wasn't sure how knowledgeable the rest of the city council members felt about exactly how city levies are, what they cover, how they work. And I just thought it'd be nice for us to have that conversation since it's budget season. Just wanted to make sure. So I was hoping that you could go through and sort of explain what these levies cover and then how that all works together. So
So first of all, on the front of the page, this is the.
Which one is it? Which document? So that people have the right.
This one? Okay, so this is at the top, it's the adoption of budget and certification of city taxes. So this is the form that the state has us file on top of the budget. And what you see there is on the left side where you see regular debt service and ag land, these are the taxable valuations that we derive our property taxes from. So the regular is would be for general fund, the tort liability, the transit, the emergency levy, the police and fire retirement, IPERS, other employee benefits. And the reason why it's lower than the debt service is because we don't tax on the valuation for TIF. So what you're seeing is the subtraction of the TIF valuation. The debt service takes into account the TIF, the entire taxable valuation, including TIF. What you see over to the right side, it says without gas or electric. So what the state does is says you decide what you want for property taxes, and here is your valuations without gas and electric utilities, because we'll assess them the taxes based upon your rates and their valuations and send you the money. Okay, so the gas and electric for the regular goes into the general fund, and the gas and electric for debt service goes into debt service. The regular general levy, what you hear a lot of city people call it is the 810 limit. The state says that for your regular general fund levy, so this is the money that goes into the general fund to pay for any lawful purpose, is limited to $8.10 per thousand. It has been that way since the late 70s. Has not increased since then. The next one we do, I do have a mistake on the front page. I put it in the wrong place because there's one that's a voted levy and a non-voted levy. So what you'll see is the next section here is non-voted permissible levies. So we don't have to go to a vote to place these levies. You just have to have the right uses for them. So where you see operation and maintenance of a public-owned transit, we levy $8,000 a year, and that goes to CBUS to help support CBUS. The next one is liability and property self-insurance. That is our property insurance, our liability for the entire city. So whatever is necessary, we can levy the amount necessary in order to cover our insurance costs. That goes into the general fund because all the insurance is paid out of the general fund. So it's our estimation of what the insurance is going to be and the expense out as well. So that brings us down to the total general fund levies. And you see the amounts there. On one side is without utility replacement, and then with utility replacement. And again, we show a line item in our budget of the state paying us for the utility replacement tax. We do have some ag land within city limits, and that is assessed at 3.00375 per thousand of valuation. It's not a lot of land, and we get $8.34. Then we get into our special revenue levies. The emergency levy, we can levy an additional 27 cents per thousand if we are at the 810 limit. And we're at the 810 limit, so we levy the full 27 cents for emergency levy. That goes into the general fund.
What does the emergency levy cover? It's just the fact that you can just levy the more.
It's if we're at the 810 and we need more money for any general purpose expense, we can levy the 27 cents.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is the police and fire retirement. Again, this is the amount necessary. So that covers the retirement costs or the retirement contributions of the city for police and fire.
And those are for existing employees or those for retired employees?
That is for current employees.
Current employees, okay.
The way it works is both for any employee, we're required to contribute to the retirement plan,
Mhm.
whether it's police and fire or IPERS.
Yes.
We're required to contribute a certain amount. That is set by the retirement boards when they figure out what they need for actuaries and everything else. They tell us what the amount is, and we have to levy for it. So the next one is FICA and IPERS. So that is for everyone in the general fund and a portion of those paid out of the road use tax. It used to be that the only money that went into a road use tax fund was road use tax that was sent from the state. They, a few years back, said because of a rising employee costs and lower distributions for the road use tax, you can levy for the FICA, IPERS, and insurance benefits in the benefits levy, and then transfer that to the road use tax. So there is a portion of road use tax that's in FICA and IPERS. Other employee benefits is the health insurance. And again, that covers everybody in the general fund and a portion of what's in the road use tax. For this upcoming year, we're at 75% of road use taxes, benefits, and retirement and FICA. So that gives you the total benefit levies, and then you add in the emergency levy for the total for that section.
So all of the other employee benefits it's not for disability or for insurance, it's just for insurance?
Well, there is disability, and there's also workman comp.
Okay, that's what, okay.
Yeah, so there's, if we pay any insurance costs for the employee is thrown in here.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
So then the next levy is debt service, and again, that is any amount necessary required to meet our debt obligations. We do transfer in money from TIF to cover some of the bonding because they were designated. Those funds were designated for certain projects. I am also transferring in the police and fire retirement. I am transferring in $193,000 from the benefits levy reserve in order to bring down the debt, bring down the overall levy a bit. So if you see a comparison from last year, you'll see that the benefits levy actually goes down because of the contribution that we're or from the transfer that I'm making from the benefits levy reserve.
So it's actually the same, we just, because we're using reserves monies, it's
So
a little lower on this document.
So what it is the amount that I'm asking for in property taxes is lower than what we would actually need
Yes,
to meet the obligation.
so you're using reserves to
Correct.
assist that, okay, thank you. So then how this has changed, can you explain how this has changed since last year then, where?
So the current levy is $18.954858 per thousand. And this year it's 22.60962.
And how long do we project that it's going to be at that or similar level? Like how long will it take for that levy service to decline to 18?
Probably 10 to 12 years.
For 10 to 12 years, we're going to run at 22 cents.
Well, for 10 to 12 years, we're going to have to finance the debt service out, the SRF loans out of debt service. This will change every year.
Okay.
Depending upon valuations and depending on what we need for employee benefits. I did include the graphs from this year's budget farther back that shows our taxable and 100% valuation changes. And what you'll see is a wider and wider gap between 100% valuations and taxable valuations due to the residential rollback. As an update, the House did pass Senate File 181. So the rollback now goes from around 56% down to around 54%. We're supposed to get those numbers within 10 days after the governor signs the bill. And so we will come back with the changes. What that does for the first page is that everything in the benefits levy remains the same. Everything in the debt service, what we're asking for, remains the same. It's going to increase the levy because we have less valuation to tax upon. What it means for any of the debt service levies is, well, really for the emergency levy and the 810 limit, it means we're going to get less dollars because those are fixed.
I apologize. So what are some strategies for us in a city to look at our 5-year plan as to not carry that amount of debt for 10 to 12 years? Is there some things that we could do or options available?
The only option would be is that if interest rates happen to drop and we get to a point where we can call bonds, that we can then refinance. What that does is that brings down the interest rate, which then brings down the payments and lowers the debt service levy. That's really the only options to us at this point.
I mean, we can make cuts too, no?
We can certainly make cuts but they would have to come in the benefits levy because the debt service is dependent upon what we need. The debt service.
So what I'm saying though to you is that if we, for instance, right now, how much do we have in reserves?
Excuse me?
How much do we have in reserves right now?
In reserves, I'd have to look that up.
So what I'm saying though is that if we're not spending as much money, we have more money that we can expend in other ways, yes?
Well, if the council has certain priorities that they would like to use that money for other purposes, they certainly can.
And that could be, for instance, to buy down debt service.
It could, but it depends on at what level and for how long you want to do that. Because what's going to happen is that because a lot of our original projections were based upon a 0.5% increase in taxable valuations over the next 5 to 10 years, right? We're not going to meet those projections because we're now dropping in the general fund how much money we're getting.
So then 22 cents probably is on the low end. That means it's just going to get worse. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, what I'm saying is that $22 is
$22, sorry.
Yeah, $22 is going to be what's the amount necessary, and once they come back with the new numbers on the rollback, that will increase beyond the 2260.
Okay.
Because the dollars for the employee benefits and the dollars for the capital project or the debt service remain the same, because that's what is the amount necessary.
Okay.
Anybody else?
The other levies are fixed rates. So if our valuation goes down and we're at the ceiling of our fixed rates, we can't adjust them to get the actual amount of revenue that we need. So we end up with less money coming in.
Correct. So the 810 and the emergency levy of 27 cents, if the valuations go down, we get less money. I did also. What's that? That's
all valuations.
I'm just telling you, your property evaluations are not going down. They're going up.
The state
no,
is
no,
lowering
but
how much they'll
how much we can tax upon.
Agreed, but the value of your property as a whole is going up. The assessors have all new manuals this year, so what you're going to be seeing is your houses are going to be assessed for way more than you even think they're probably worth.
Correct.
We just should be aware of
Correct.
that.
But what the state says is because that the residential property valuations are growing faster than agricultural properties, that they're going to allow us to tax on less. The projection is next year that amount goes from 54% down to 49%.
Just, I mean, my shack is going up like a lot more than it should. So people should just be aware that
Sure.
evaluations are not going to go down on your houses.
No, the amount that we can tax upon that valuation goes down. Right. Okay. I also included a couple other documents. These come from the Department of Management. The big, long one, what I did is I took cities from around 8,000 to around 12,000 and got the information on what their levies are. Anything in orange are comparables for the salary survey. Anything in yellow is just somebody who fits within the population amount. What it does do is it gives you what their taxable valuations are. It gives the population their taxable valuations, and then gives you a breakdown of all of their different levies. Now, what I can't tell you is when you get to employee benefits, what they are levying for police and fire, FICA, IPERS, or insurance. But you can get an idea of where we stand. And then the other document I gave you is the Department of Management takes the consolidated, which is all the tax levies that are placed upon houses and businesses in Keokuk, and ranks them from highest to lowest. Number one is Lamoni at 50.6 per thousand. We sit at number 5 at 44.09
25.
per thousand. Correct. You will notice that there are, what I call core cities, where their suburbs are growing, but because they're now landlocked or don't have the ability to expand, they are experiencing some of what we are, and that their valuations are not growing fast enough to meet their demands. So you see Des Moines, you see Davenport, and you see Fort Dodge and Ottumwa.
I guess just be mindful in that other packet, the last page is a pie chart of
Oh, yes.
all of the things. So just so that everyone's aware that 44 also includes, 36% goes to the school, 18% to the county, that will be going up. Just that there's more than just the city in that.
Correct. The problem that we run into is anytime anybody talks about taxes, is they come here. Yeah, I know. Right, right, and that's what we have to remind them. We've even had industries come and say, we want to talk about our property taxes, and I said, okay, well, let's invite the school and let's invite the county, and they go, well, why? So people don't understand that we are only one component of their property tax.
Anything else, guys? What's for supper? Okay, so if there's nothing else, I think it's time to go home, so meeting adjourned.